So look at all the forces around the world who are trying to dismantle this nation and so on. And as India climbs up, they're going to try more and more. And the best way they can do this is by creating splits within your own ranks and so on. Because there's always people who can be bought and sold. And there's always people who are stupid, who don't understand the bigger game, what the enemies are trying to do. So this is happening. It's like the Khalistanis in the Sikh world, like, and their numbers are very small, but they're very boisterous. They intimidate anybody else, but they are completely on the wrong path. Guru Gobind Singh at no point spoke about Punjab, he spoke about Madhya Pradesh. At no point Guru Gobind Singh he spoke about Sagal Hind in all his writings and so on. So, and his Panj Pyare came from all over India, so that means he had appeal for all of India. And this is the whole idea, and then clearly he states in Sablu Granth, Sanatanta Meri Prabh Safal, like make my Sanatan Dharma successful. Like.
Namaste all the Sangam Talks viewers. It is my honor to welcome you to today's session on the timeless wisdom encapsulated in the ancient martial arts of India known as Sanatan Shastra Vidya. We are privileged to have with us a true master of this profound tradition, Gurudev Nidhar Singh Ji. He is the last torch bearer of Sanatan Shastra Vidya. Gurudev Nidhar Singh Ji has dedicated his life to preserving and sharing the rich heritage of Sanatan Shastra Vidya, a system of knowledge that transcends mere physical combat, encompassing spiritual growth, mental discipline, and holistic well-being. His teachings are rooted in millennium-old wisdom passed down through several generations on this land of Bharat. In addition, Gurudev Nidhar Singh Ji continues to innovate and adapt this ancient wisdom to the modern world. Recently, he has launched an app that serves as a gateway to the teachings of Sanatan Shastra Vidya, making this invaluable knowledge more accessible to the masses, to a global audience as well. Our topic for today's session is Ram Vidya versus Ravan Vidya. As we delve into the profound teachings of Sanatan Shastra Vidya, let us open our hearts and minds to the wisdom that Gurudev Nidhar Singh Ji graciously imparts to us today. Before we start the session today, first I want to ask you about the app that you have recently launched and how it is aiming to help everyone globally to lead a better life and a disciplined life.
So since 1995, when I left India after 11 years of study, so I've been teaching in the West. I've been teaching globally, Europe, Americas, Canada, and of course, since 2017, I started coming to India. And I was in Tirumalai, near Pondicherry. So for the last 10, 15 years, like since 2007, I made the Vidya open to the world, so the martial arts community was aware of it. YouTube channels started in the UK and so on, and the Vidya spread everywhere. And as yourself and many other guys here were watching my YouTubes over the years. And when I came down to Tirumalai, there was a rickshaw guy. He approached me, he recognized me, and he basically spoke, and I'm surprised he spoke in good English, because down south they're super educated. That he was watching these YouTubes, and that young man said he wanted to learn as well. And I made the point that I'm here for the first time in 2017. I'm going to start doing seminars and all this. And of course, he said, "Look, I couldn't afford the seminars. I couldn't get there." And that sort of struck a chord with me, like that. There are individuals out here in India who want this Bharatiya Vidya, and they will never have any access to it. So I decided. I went back, spoke to one of my guys, and fortunately for me, he works in the industry of making digital banks. And around that time in 2017, there was some new technology that came out. They're helping the banks to make apps and so on. And he says within a year or so, this technology will start coming out, and we made public. And so we started then thinking about how can we make this Vidya accessible to everybody, like in India in particular, but around the world as well. And so even the person who is the poorest of the poor has a right to this indigenous Vidya, which is not only a physical martial art that will improve you in every way, physically, mentally, emotionally, but it's a spiritual tradition. So that's how the app understanding began. And here we are now. So in between we got stuck with COVID. So COVID happened and so on, and then slowly but slowly, so this Mahashivratri, and even that was a very, I can tell you, we had tried to release the app several times before, like twice before. And first time we tried to do it last year. There's a special day just before Baisakhi in the Sikh tradition where Guru Gobind Singh is the day where he propitiated the Devi successfully and gained her Vardhan. That was a special day for us because the Ishte of the Vidya is Devi Ma. And we decided to release it then. But then something went wrong, some of the bugs in the app for whatever reason. Then we said, okay, we'll do a bit later on, like. And then one of the guys who developed it suddenly got bit by a fox and got rabies. I said, okay, let's delay it again. Then a bit later on, the same guy got cancer. Whatever, so okay, that's not going to happen. And so every time we try to release it, something just happened. Now, this time around, we didn't even plan the day, like. It wasn't in our head, like. We just say, okay, let's get the app done, and then we'll pick a day, like. And call it coincidence, call it what you want, it landed exactly on the day of Mahashivratri, like. So the Vidya's origins lies with the Adideva Shiva. And in the Mahashivratri, Om Namo Bhagavate Rudra is a mantra they read in the Mahashivratri. We were completely unaware of this, but that is the final mantra of the Vidya as well. When the Vidya is sealed with the Madhavani, which is a particular posture we have, we say that mantra to finish the Vidya off. So the Vidya begins with Bandate Si Kal Bhairav Mahabhairav Rudra Bhairav, and then he ends with that mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Rudra. And so Mahashivratri was the day that was meant to be, it seems. And so this app has now appeared, like you can show it later on what it is. And this app is constructed in such a way that in India, every month, there'll be modules in the form of videos, which are like 3 minutes long. They are in 3 languages. So English for the global audience. And of course, India is the biggest English-speaking country in the world, apparently, after America. Higher education is all English here. And a lot of my southern friends and students down south, they will not be able to understand Hindi or Punjabi. And then the other video, then one section is in Hindi, and then the videos are also reproduced in a mixture of Punjabi and elements of Hindi as well. Like. And so the idea is, these small modules you can download every month, and the cost we kept very extremely low. From at the moment it's 130 rupees a month, and then because I'm keeping that rickshaw guy in mind. I want him to get it, and then it'll go up to about 150 rupees, and that's it. In India, that's what it's going to be like. And alongside that, there are articles, which we also at the most cost you 100 rupees or whatever each article, and then there are master classes. So because I'm dealing with world-class martial artists as well, like. And the Vidya that's presented is not, it is basic, but at the same time it's advanced as well. Something that will attract martial art masters around the world. You could read you can hear and read the testimonials on the app itself. So the app is divided into, there's one section which is free. So all you have to do is download it. And then there's a free section. On that free section, there are testimonials from martial art masters and teachers from around the world. Soldiers, martial art masters, and they'll tell you they've been training in the art, been exposed to the art. They can tell you exactly what the art is, and they'll tell you why it should be preserved, etc. These testimonials are in Hindi, and there are ones Punjabi, and but most are in English. And from there you can go over what the Vidya is. In the next about 10 days' time, we're also bringing out literature. There'll be 3 volumes on Sanatan Shastra Vidya history, its traditions, its philosophy, its origins, etc. and so on. So academics, people who are not likely to train, but they can read, they can understand where this art comes from. And then that's the free section. So the books themselves will be on Kindle. And again, we're going to make them very affordable in India as well. Different price here. And then we have that paid section, which is you subscribe to. And there's 3 sections on that. There's one is going to be the actual modules, which are like 150 rupees. Then there are articles, which you pay a nominal fee for. And then because the ecosystem we have set up is, we didn't go onto YouTube, we didn't go to Facebook. We ended up getting our own servers designing our own what's called app. So the idea is that this intellectual property is kept safe for posterity and so on. And the Vidya is to be, where we look at the Vidya is sacred to us. The Vidya is Sanatan, Shastra Vidya, is timeless. Sadat Dharma Kshatriyon ko chalo Sanatanai, says Guru Gobind Singh, is always is from Sanatan times. It is a Vidya of the Devi Devte. So the Panch Dev, the Akhada, we have Adi Deva Shiva, which is from him is the origins of this Vidya. The Ishtadeva is of course Devi Ma, Chandi. And then the intellect is Krishna Maharaj. The ideal that we aspire to is Ram. And then finally the underlying benign spirit is of Vishnu Bhagwan. And this is where we will begin that thing about Ram and Ravan, the distinction. It begins all with Vishnu first line. So the Vidya is that way. The Vidya is sacred. And Shastra Vidya will eventually become Shastra Puja. It is linked with that called Advaita, Vedantic and Vaishnava traditions, and also has tinges of Shakti worship and Shivite worship as well. In the writings of Guru Gobind Singh, you'll find both. In Adi Granth, you'll find Vedant and Vaishnava traditions. In the Dasam Granth, you'll find elements of the Shakti tradition and the Vaishnava tradition, and the Shivite tradition. Because Guru Gobind Singh's, at the end of the day, he was aiming to unite the whole Sanatan world together. So he talks about that Hindu Dharma Jage, Turk Danta Paje. The Turks he's talking about is the oppressive Mughals and so on. We're not talking about general Muslims, we're talking about the oppressive Mughals and so on. So in the writings of Guru Gobind Singh, you'll find he never talks about Punjab as Punjab. For him, Punjab was Mother Desh, Madri ka Desh, Madri, the mother of Nakul and Shahdev. And then when he talks about he talks about Sagal Hinte Turk Badaru, like from all Hind. So he always talks about in terms of Hind, he talks about Madar Desh, so he only speaks in Sanatan terms and so on. Sagal Hind and so on. So in that context, and when he created the Khalsa, the 5 Khalsa that came, only one was from Punjab, the others were from Karnataka, Orissa, so on, and all Gujarat, Maharashtra. They were from all over India. So we're talking about unifying all of India in a form of creating Kshatriya. So what I'm doing is Nahang. Is in the Nahang world, we believe in a 96 crore Khalsa, like 960 million Khalsa. Like that. The word Khalsa means people of pure heart and intellect and understanding. And that's what Khalsa is. And so throughout the centuries, they want to spread what is best in Sanatan Dharma throughout India itself and so on. And so this app here will give you access at your fingertips, no matter where you are. So I have people in Assam who want to learn a bit there, people down South India, whatever they want. You have an opportunity at a very affordable. And it's not even we see this as a peta. If you go to a mandir, you go to a Gurdwara, you will give some peta in order to attain knowledge and so on. So this is Brahmagyan Vidya in terms of that way there. And you're given this peta, and this peta, as we were discussing earlier on, before the British came, there were akhadas established amongst the Sikhs, the Rajputs, the Marathas and so on. In this akhadas, this knowledge was given. And when the British came, the first thing they did was ban all the Shastras and so on, collected all the weapons, and these akhadas vanished. And it was one individual, Sawan Singh Bangru, whose families were Brahmins from Kashmir, who came down to Haryana and got married there with Jats. So it's like Jat Brahmin type. So Sawan Singh Bangru kept this art alive. He was hunted by the British after the Anglo-Sikh Wars for 30 years. He kept it alive, passed it on to 2 individuals, Baba Mangal Singh and another Mangal Singh, there are 2 Mangal Singhs, and then Baba Gyan Singh, and then he came down to us. Like so, this Vidya, it has come from the beginnings of time. It's Sanatan. And it is believed that it will end, and is meant to continue to the ends of time, and so on. Now, India has been free since 1947. India is rising in terms of its economy and so on, and power in the world, and prestige in the world. And this Kshatriya Vidya, which is the backbone of ancient India, has to be brought back again to India. So that's what the app is for. So the app is available to download on Android and on the Apple stores as well, like so.
India indeed need that Kshatriya spirit back, and it's a very good news for seekers like myself who always wanted to learn from you but couldn't get a chance. So all the viewers, you'll get the link for the application in the description. Now Guruji, moving on to the topic for today, Ram Vidya versus Ravan Vidya. So my first question is, how do the principles of Ram Vidya, that is Sanatan Shastra Vidya, the ancient martial arts of India, differ from those of Ravan Vidya, or I would say the modern fitness regime?
No, it's not. So here, Mutare, it's nothing about more fitness. So in Shaturudya, we have a particular body mechanics. Dhan Peru call it. So when we move according to moving with gravity. Now, gravity in ancient India is Gurtavaya Karshana Shakti. Now, whereas in the West, I mean, the understanding of gravity fully got unraveled by Sir Isaac Newton. And in India, they're also having understandings of gravity for a long time. Like, even the ancient Greeks, everybody understands you throw something up, there's got to be some kind of power that brings it down. Like, so even the Greeks were thinking like this. The Indians also thought like this. But the Indians, we have Rishi Kanad, who belongs to one of the Khat Darshans, the 6 schools of philosophy. It's the Visheshka school he belonged to. And in that Visheshka Shastra, he speaks of Gurtava Akarshana Shakti. And so there's an understanding of gravity. And then the way, so our Rishi Munis like the famous Mandukya, etc., the one who wrote the Upanishad, Mandukya Upanishad and so on. So there's a legend, a very which called within the Akhada, that one time Rishi Mandukya was sitting besides a pond, and of course, like Rishi was meditating, reflecting, and a frog came landing upon his leg. And and then we said nothing special there, but at that point when the frog jumped off, he realized there was no pushing off. The frog's legs did not push off. And I mean, we've got a beautiful image here, which you can share with you later on. You can see on there of a frog jumping off. One of the guys in England, a photographer, by chance took this picture, and it shows a frog jumping off someone's hand, and the body's gone, the legs are left behind. You see the picture, then you will, when the picture is seen, you will see what he means like that. So what we have now here is, with this, is that an understanding developed in Rishi Mandukya's mindset that there's something at work here, which is not pushing off the ground and so on. So over the centuries, the Rishi Munis figured out ways how to move utilizing gravity. Like now this is technical stuff. So unless you come to the Akhada and see what's happening, or go to the app and I'll show you what this is, a lot of people are not going to really understand. The most basic way it can make you understand is to move without pushing your feet is how children do it. So when you see a small baby and he starts to learn to move, he doesn't push off the ground. What he does is the baby leans forward until his body mass goes beyond his center of gravity, then his feet are naturally uprooted. So beginning from that understanding, the Rishi Munis, who always observed nature, super smart, they figured out ways to move without using physical, direct muscle use and so on. Now, they learned how to, this is the paradox, they learned how to, through their meditation and so on. So meditation is central to this art. So through meditation, we learn to focus, concentrate, and settle the mind to gain full clarity. And once you have that understanding, once you have the mind settled, calm, and full clarity, we can then clearly think. In an agitated mind, you cannot think. And these Rishi Munis were deep thinkers. They're thinking about Brahm, like. They're talking about the whole universe, what it entails, what it means, and so on. Eventually, they came to a conclusion in the Advaita school of Satchitanand. So what we have is Rishis, super thinkers, and they learn to move with gravity, and they started learning to relax. As they relax, they release muscular tension, skeletal, structural tension, and they learn how to compress. So the internal structures in the body, because the Rishis came to a profound understanding that the human body is mostly water. That's why in ancient texts it talks about ghat, ke ghat ghat mein harju base, that in the water pot. So the water pot, the body is likened to a water pot. And sometimes in Guru Granth Sahib it is likened also to a samundar, an ocean and so on. And it is a scientific fact that the human body is mainly 65% water. And as a consequence, with this understanding that the body is water, then the Rishi Munis began to think about how to move utilizing this understanding. And they came up with understanding of like buoyant force and so on. If you relax, you create a particular compression, and that compression gives you buoyant force. We in Punjabi we call it Chardi Kala. And that allows you to basically move effortlessly. But at the same time, this is the paradox now. It creates your body becomes light because of the buoyant force, but because you release the mass, it becomes heavy. So it becomes heavy and light at the same time, which does not really compute with human beings. But when you feel the art where it is, so the art is highly sophisticated, and you got to realize Indian civilization, in terms of cultural advancement, I mean, there's a lot of civilization, but Indian civilization was highly advanced in the past. And so we're not saying this just because we're Indians, but there definitely is. The Indians love categorizing things, and the Indians basically observe, because they're understanding the universe is infinite. To understand the infinite, they're going to study everything, and that's what the Rishi Munis were doing, and it was a very open debate going on every thought and so on. So you had schools which were Astic, you had Nastic schools. Some of the same schools were Astic and Nastic within. And then the Kardashians were constantly debating with each other, this. Students will learn from one school and then go and study with the other one to see what their weaknesses are and so on and so on. So this debating, this exploring the universe, the infinite, to understand Brahm, that's what at the end they became to understand Niti, because the more they tried to explore, the more they understood, the more there was. So with Chaturday, he evolved in that kind of what's called a milieu of intellectual pursuit and so on. And as a consequence, the Guru Mantra of Chaturday is Kal. So Kal, of course, is death, is time, space, time. But Kal is also another name for Shiv. Shiv is Akarshan. Akarshan is Akarshan Shakti. Akarshan Shakti is Gurtavaya Akarshan Shakti. So it's gravity. So everything, every single movement, every single action is with gravity. And as a consequence, this does not only make us very martially, very efficient in movement, that between starting a movement and ending it, the transition, we're trying to get rid of. So from a spiritual perspective, we say Shiva is stillness, and his Shakti, the Adi Shakti, is movement. So between stillness and movement, there's a transition. From the point where you are still, then you move, there's a transition. And we try to transcend that by moving in such a way that you cannot see the transition. That we are basically adish, meaning we are non-telegraphic. It can be catched by. So the philosophy of Chaturday itself is Vedantic. So the notion of Vedant, that everything from the Shun emerges. So you have Adark and you have Akark. So jab Adark kara katara par jaisa te para, jab Akart kart ho kamu tumhe mil detar samu. That's Guru Gobind Singh saying, when the universe expands, when the void, when expands, then everything comes to being, and then it contracts. So this constant expansion and contraction of the universe is happening. And taking that understanding, the ancient sages, the ancient Rishi Munis, they then adapted that to the physical body. So the average human being now breathes in and he breathes out. But in Chaturday, I'm not breathing in and out. I'm doing that while I'm constantly expanding, and I'm then contracting through relaxations and so on. And so with that kind of understanding, everything changes. The way you generate power and force and so on. So when we look at, so what we say Ram, when we say Ram, there's a saying they have Ram japo, Aram karo. Okay? So Ram na betna, Ram na kam karna, Ram na everything. Ram means relaxation. So whereas normally we will just lift the arm like this, in this understanding, we will do Aram first. We relax. We relax all our structures, relax everything we are, and then we will lift and so on. If I can get Jogditi to come over here, just to show you. So if I put my hand like this, I'm just sitting there doing nothing And Yogaditya, who is obviously a big, strong guy, he would put his hand on there to stop me from lifting it like this. So there, I can't lift it with muscle. That's going to be difficult, like. And even here, that's pure muscle using. And when you use muscles like this, they are segmented and so on. But if I were to now connect and relax and expand, and then I lift it, then the power comes, like. So it's difficult to understand. I mean, Yogi is here now, he's a bodybuilder type. And so he lifts weights. Well, he lifted for a living, like, he still does. And the distinction between a normal lift and relaxing, expanding a lifting, Yogi, how would you explain it?
The difference is enormous. When you are lifting using the muscle, mostly the muscle's weight is going to work. If you understand it scientifically, only that particular muscle's mass is going to work in that case. But in Gurudev's case, he's using his entire mass, which is almost 95 kg, 96 kg. So I couldn't stop it because that 95 kg were working in tandem with gravity. So that was the basic difference, and this gives him phenomenal power.
For pound, this method of relaxing and expanding completely is much more powerful than using just muscles in isolation by itself. Even logically, think about it. If your whole body is working as one, as opposed to groups of muscles working individually, it's obviously going to be a lot stronger and so on. So the key thing in the Vidya with Ram is, we say the concept of Ram, sometimes say, and then we say Ravan Vidya, or we say Mekkasur Vidya as well, because we also, like Ram, we have Chandi as well. So the idea is this idea of relaxing and then focusing in the mind and then relaxing, so we say Surti Lagoni, and then letting working with gravity. Now, opposed to this, like if I say I'm up like this, I'm all what you call akkadya like this. So akkadna, like this kind of movement here, you see that is associated with Ravan and Mekkasur and so on, all the negative Rakish spirits out. The word Rakish literally means your Rakkarn, they who burn, who destroy. Rak is ash, Rakkan, they who destroy, the destructive. Whereas Ram is he who nurtures. So it's the opposite of that. So Ravan is also Ram. So in Guru Nanak actually says in Gurbani, he actually says in Scriptures, Ramchand Maryo Ehe Ram, Ravan. Ramchand Maryo Ehe Ravan. Ke Ramchandra ji destroyed the Hankar, the ego form Ravan. So the ego inside you is Ravan. And what destroys it is Ram. And when ego, in Punjabi we also say like akadya, akarna. So when you're stiff and all this. Now when you stiffen up like this, what you're doing is you're isolating the muscles. And so individual muscles start working individually. So if you look at bodybuilders, modern day bodybuilding, they develop individual muscle groups. So they may train one day bicep, next day tricep, next try this. And thus each individual gets defined. And they look at the definitions of the muscles and their proportions and their symmetry. And accordingly they judge them to be a good bodybuilder or a bad bodybuilder and so on. But the body becomes segmented. And also the body becomes, nowadays in the West, they associate like big bulging, hard muscles as being epitome of strength and so on. So the least fat that is, so nowadays there's a craze for six packs for a good while, like, and which basically means you just decrease your body fat to such a level that your six pack show. Everybody can do that if they decrease their body fat that much. But it is not healthy, like, to go that thin and so on. So whereas if you look at the physique that the Indians had understanding of, if you go to ancient mandirs and you look at the images, the murti of say Krishna Maharaj or Sri Ramchandra ji and so on, or Shiv and so on, it's a different type of physique. And this physique is understood, and this physique that the murti in the mandirs are very precise because they're based on Shastras. In the Shastras, they give you exact measurements. This is that long, this is that long. You can't just make a cartoon or make any kind of image and so on. And they're iconic representatives, so they're very precise. And the way they stand with their feet underneath the body, that is known as stanu. So when you stand in such a way that your body is perfectly in line with gravity, so all your mass is stacked up with gravity, and thus they can work with gravity. I mean, the opposite is this: when you stoop, when you go down, and you stoop like bent over, you're going to feel the pain in the back, etc., so on. So having a good posture, then developing the right kind of physique. So the physique that we had for ancient Kshatriyas, and if you look at all the avatars, see Ramchandra ji, see Krishna Maharaj, they're all Kshatriyas. So the Kshatriya physique is spoken of as Sadol Lachkadar. The word Sadol literally means firm, muscular, symmetrical. And the word Lachkadar means soft,
Flexible.
resilient, tensile strength. It's not just flexible, it means soft, resilient tensile strength. So the idea what you call a firm, so firm but not hard. Okay, so in the Western sense, when they build muscles, they will basically tear the fibers, the muscle fibers. So next day, that's why you feel so sore. So they tear the muscle fibers slightly, and then they rest, and then they build up and so on. And by tearing it, they build the muscles up. The problem, the issue with that is like someone cuts your skin, and then it heals. There's a scar, but the scar will be stiff, and so on. So the stiffness comes in. Our ancestors, with Sanjam Kriya, they understood that rather than tearing the muscles, they take it. Like if see these are say fibers, instead of breaking them, they take them to the point of breaking, but they don't break them. So the muscles do get worked, but the fibers they're not broken because we don't want that internal scarring going on, and that's stiffness. So in this way, the physique stays firm. But same, it gets stronger, it gets stronger as well, and he has that to call. So that's the firmness, that's the Sadol, the firm, muscular, and symmetry they want, because each side of the body they want symmetry. Symmetry is associated with health. If we look at a fruit which is symmetrical, that's going to be more attractive to us than a fruit which is bent, because symmetry in nature is linked with health. If you're not symmetrical, there's no health. Even human beings, we're attracted to symmetry. So on. That's like even a blotch of ink on a piece of paper folded and puts it up there because it's symmetrical, it'll look nice to us. If it's not symmetrical, it doesn't look nice to us. So symmetry is crucial to indicate health. So we want a body that's firm, muscular, symmetrical, and the lach we're talking about is not stretching, but expanding, and so on. So if I stretch my arm, I can only go that far. But if I now relax my structures, so my ligaments, my tendons, they release their tension, my muscles. My arm now goes, look that, how far that goes. And it will increase in power as well. Because the Indian Rishi Munis, now this is where you got to understand, this is how smart they were. They understood that even body parts like the arm, if you cut the arm off here, the arm will be 5.7% of your body mass. And they understood this. So when you hit someone, you will strike, like in my case, I am 98 kg in weight. And as a consequence, my arm is roughly about, I think it's 5.58 kg. So if I was to hit you with 8.8 kg, and then when they hit, it's not just the hitting with the mass, they're hitting with kinetic energy. And the kinetic energy is of the rate of an object flowing through gravity. That's 9.81 meters per square second. So in 1 second, you'll go 9.81 seconds. That's like a car going from 0 to 60 in 2.7 seconds. So when you put mass and then you put kinetic energy together, you get force. So the ancient Rishi Munis understood that. So when they hit you, they'll hit you with what they call lamehat, parehat. So if you have descriptions of Sri Ramchandra, they call him Ajin Bahu.
Ajin Bahu.
With the arms are longer. So here, like my arms are here now. If I were to relax my structures, they'll go up. And you can relax different structures, and then your arms will get to near the knee, and so on. So that gets you Ajin Bahu. And once you have Ajin Bahu, then you can maneuver from the shoulders and so on. And once you can maneuver from the shoulders, you can connect with the whole body, then your whole body will work and so on. So Chatur there will introduce you to a way to move with gravity. So yes, there are phenomenal martial arts which called benefits that we can move as one from the shoulders, shoulder weights, and this understanding of move from the shoulders is verified by text. There's a 1846 text written by Kavi Santokh, which is Sikh text, which talks about Payan Sagande Shigata Sat, that moving feet with speed with shoulders. Payan Sagande Skanda, shoulder blade. So moving the feet with the shoulders with speed. Now, that's 1846. You say that's not really ancient. Then you go back in time and you go to the Agni Puran. So even the most conservative dating of this Puran by modern day academics, they reckon that it was written between 9th and 11th century. But they do concede that it might have been written between 9th and 11th century, but it existed in some form much earlier. So even if we go by, say, 9th, 11th century, that's over 1,000 years ago. And in there, it talks about Skandegat, locomotion with shoulder blades. Now, we use Akarshan Shakti, which is gravity and so on. He also mentions Akarshan in there as well, the compression side there. You're going to realize Danu Veda, which is the Upved, and texts like the Agni Puran, they were written for warriors, for Kshatriyas, and they were written by people who already knew what they were doing. So as a consequence, they do not elaborate everything. They're more cryptic. So they may just say Akarshan Shakti, they may say Skande Gat, and the ones who know, they understand what it means, whereas the average person, they cannot. So ancient texts were written in apophisms.
They're like small formulas.
Formulas, which you need a guru to unravel, right. Because the traditional system of Indian study is Guru Shishya Parampara, and and this is a very advanced form of teaching as well. Because anytime Dick and Harry can start reading books and start he may have no character, his intentions may be all wrong and so on. So to catch out the Chunjagyanis who take a bit of knowledge and set themselves up and false teachers, the Indian masters had this understanding that you need a good shish parampara to keep the vidya in terms of in its pristine form and so on. Because India is one of the only few places where ancient knowledge that was transmitted from thousands of years ago has somehow managed to survive till now. If you go back to any other culture in the world, that knowledge on the whole, written knowledge, culture, has vanished. Like the Greeks cannot relate to the ancient texts and so on, the Europeans and so on. But in India, we still go to Banaras. They are still chanting the Vedic chants in the same way. In South India, there's a fire ceremony of the Agni Devta, which they reckon is pre-human language, and that's still been cited there. Same with Shaturudaya. Shaturudaya is very precise, because it's a Vedic knowledge. So anything Vedic knowledge, we know is Vedic knowledge when it's very precise. So Shaturudaya is precise because it's governed by the simple principle that everything must move with Kala. And then if you look at the movements of Shaturudaya, you will start moving gravity, and it's linked with myth. So for instance, the first step we teach in Shaturudaya of how to step is linked with the myth from the Shiv Puran, where Brahma and Vishnu will come to argue over who came first, and then Shiva steps out of the Jyotirlingam. And that first step is linked with that one. And then towards the end, when the final portion comes, when we end the Vidya, it ends up in the Nataraj posture. So then it becomes like a Tandav Nat. So if you look at the Vidya itself, and you look at, say, classical Indian dancing, the movements are the same enough. They're basically, if you were a classical dancer, you saw Shaturudaya in its highest form, you will say it's like nut. It is. Because even like Kathak dancing is Krishna when he danced on the head of Kalnag.
Even Tandav, some say, is a battlefield.
It is pure Tandav. Tandav is pure battle. I can dance it. I can dance it with Bukhavij. And it's pure combat. Because all is happening in the way Tandav is done, or we call it Kalnach as well, the dance of death, is they do very micro movements. And these movements are achieved by doing, so your muscles, we can train them to relax and release their mass. And not just release their mass, but prakshepan their mass, meaning project their mass. And then as we project, we can then, at any given moment, basically spill our mass in 360 degrees. And then because the muscle groups are of different size, so for instance, if I release mass from the arm, or say bicep, it's going to have a different, the mass of the bicep is different to, say, the pecs, to the trapezius, to the lats, and different groups. So there's over 600 muscles in the body. We will dance with 600 muscles plus in the whole body, and then the movement begins with shoulders, shoulder to shoulder blades to the spine. So the spine is linked to what we call, so in yoga, they have the concept of Kundalini. But older than yoga is Sanjam Kriya Pranayama, which is a martial form of yoga exercises. And in it, we have a concept of Bhujangama, which is basically the same. So Bhujangama means mother snake. It is similar to the concept of Kundalini, in a sense, because even in yoga, they call it sometimes Bhujangama as well, some of the ancient texts. So, but then we have a different concept. So you have, it is spoken of like a snake. And the reason for that is in Chaturvidya is the way we understand this, because if you look at the Khat Chakra of the body, so on, so right from the top here, Sesar Chakra and so on, Stapani Chakra and so on, they sort of don't line up completely, they sort of zigzag like a snake. So from that understanding, they have understanding like a snake-like. But we have, unlike in yoga where they have the Pachangama, or sorry, the Kundalini, we have two types of snakes. We have the Pachangama, and we also have Vasukhi as well, the snake of Shiv. And that's to do with how to activate the spine. The spine is like 95% water. So the Vidya is very intricate, just like it's an intricate science. As you say, everything that is, if you're dealing with a knowledge which is a Upaved, okay, so you like, for instance, in Upaveds you have Gandharva Ved, dealing with music, dance and so on. You have Stapani Ved dealing with architecture and so on. You have Ayurveda, and Ayurveda still exists today. And if you look at how sophisticated Ayurvedic knowledge is, in terms of and how nut, dancing knowledge is, music is and so on. And then architecture is like mind-blowing. There's temples out there now, forts built that modern day architects can't even dream of. How can this be done like? So in the same way, is Chaturvidya. So yesterday, I was doing a seminar, and I showed them how to move the body from within, Antargati, but without moving the frame. So in appearance, it looks like, so Jatin's here and I'll tell you what it feels like. So Jatin, so when the body moves, so he was there so he'll tell you that. So the understanding is this, that we're going to pull back. So in other words, someone's throwing a punch or hitting you with a sword. So you're going to move the body back, but without actually moving the physical frame of the body, and yet still go out the way to evade the blow like.
Actually, what was happening is, I said we can, shift our focus when the movement is in the linear motion. But what he was doing is actually it's going vertically and horizontally at the same time. So the outer frame was not moving at all, but internally he's relaxing, and as he was relaxing, the body is moving, maybe 2 to 3 inches, and that is sufficient to evade a blow.
So the Vidya is sophisticated like this. Now it's called, so the science is this. So Ram Vidya is Brahm Vidya, knowledge of Brahm, knowledge of the infinite and so on. And as a consequence, that is Ram Vidya. So Ram Vidya works through relaxation, staying calm, and Ram Vidya is dependent on Devi Gun, like virtues and so on. So Vidya that you manage your calm, your krodh, your lobh, your lust, your greed, etc., and so on, so on, so on, to stay in that calm state. So from a scientific point of view, in times of stress, especially in times of danger, when it's fight or flight, the human body releases cortisol, which is a particular kind of hormone that gets you fight or flight. So either you will now run, or you will just lash out blindly to defend yourself or whatever. But what happens is your higher cognitive, what you call functions, cortisol switches them off, your muscles get tense, and then your adrenaline, that gets pumping in, and your heart starts, what you call beating faster. So in other words, a lot of surge of energy right away. The ancient Rishi Munis understood this, and they decided the best way to fight in terms of danger, especially in ancient battlefields where battles can last for days, if not months, is to basically prevent the cortisol from causing havoc. They don't mind, a bit of cortisol coming in, telling you what's happening now. They say, okay, now we know what's happening now shut up. Again, by relaxing, so that our breathing is different as well. So if you look at normal breathing, it's from the lungs up here. if you look at yogic breathing, it is from the navel. They relax the diaphragm, they go there, and thus they gain that heaviness. Mhm. If you want to experiment with if you want to see how heavy it is, go to a swimming pool and try to sit underneath the water, cross-legged. And if you relax into a diaphragm and compress there, you will get heavy and will sit at the bottom. Otherwise, you keep on floating up. So this heaviness is there, but the Kshatriyas don't want that heaviness, because when you walk with that breathing from the navel, your feet becomes heavy. And we want to be light-footed and agile and nimble. So when someone attacks, we are so agile, so nimble that we are constantly repositioning ourselves to get a superior tactical position, and the pawn can't strike. So we want to be fleety like a butterfly and invisible like a juguru. We're switching lights on, off, moving away. So the Kshatriyas emerged from the hunters. So first came the hunters, and when the hunters started hunting other human beings, they became warriors, and so on. So the warriors came, the hunters came, and when the hunters were successful, they danced, so singing, dancing came, and then enjoyment boogie came. The yogis came last, because human beings think of spirituality as the last thing. First is always Prit Puja, and so on. So what happens now is, with this breathing, the warriors, they understood if we breathe from the Natsar. So Natsar literally means, Natkan means like nerves or so on. Sal means a house. It also means the heart of Shiva. Like. So that's where the constant beating of the heart goes, so Natsar. So we breathe from the solar plexus, and that gives us a completely, not only light movement, but our frame doesn't move. So when we walk towards you, we have such walks like called Dev Chal and so on, and Bhut Chal. So don't forget Shiva is Bhuteshwar as well. He's Dev, he's Adi Dev, he's Devanko Dev, which is also Bhuteshwar. So with that understanding, which is born from working with elephants and such, and so elephants, when they move, they will basically, their head will move first, and their mass will be taken ahead, just because the elephant's head is proportionately larger than the body. Same as a small baby's head is larger than the body. So when we first teach you how to move, just to get an understanding of movement, we'll tell you to just tip your head forward until you go beyond the center of gravity, then you start moving. And again, the elephants, even these namaskars we do, like from the elephants lifting their trunks and so on, and their tusks and so on.
Increases the...
Yeah, that's what comes from there. So Indians domesticated the elephant, and by riding elephants, they felt that movement, that dulkana, that spilling motion. And then from there, the gajpaw, the field paw, the elephant foot came. And from there, they started understanding spilling, and eventually they moved on to concepts like devpaw. So when we move, as you observe me, if you put your hand on me when I move, I'm floating. I'm not going up and down. And then suddenly, one moment I'm here, and then, because I move at the rate of gravity, if I need to, I can cover that. I can cover up to what's called, in the most, it's the smallest, it's between 7.5 feet or up to 18 feet in a single blink. You can cover with this kind of methodology, which is, for warriors, is fantastic, because that's how tigers do. Tigers, they pounce. They get within 32 feet and they pounce. So the ancient Rishi Munis observed and they watched the animals, the jungles, and so on. And Kshatrudaya has memory of that. In their culture, we understand where it comes from. Like, so for instance, I'll give you a good example. Like when Indians sort of wobble their head up and down, and it's not a no or a yes. Some people from the West get completely confused as what their heads are doing. Even that is related to a myth. When Vishnu and Brahma decided to find out the extent of the Shivlingam, the Jyotirlingam, when he appeared before him, Brahma met the cow and persuaded the cow to lie on his behalf that he has found the ant of the Jyotirlingam. So when the cow appeared before Brahma, she spoke yes with the head, no with the tail, and hence you have all this kind of understanding. So the myths, the history, the traditions, on one hand, it links aspects of our culture that would be lost otherwise, and so on. Because Kshatrudaya did not die or fade away or whatever. The few individuals who kept it, they kept it. It kept it 100%. It's an unbroken tradition. The school I represent is from 1661, but the knowledge predates the Sikhs. So we have the Guru Nanak. Guru Nanak led from the Nathas from the Kapaliks from the Pashupats, and the Pashupats who also known as Varate or Kesin from Shiv himself. So the Vidya is all traced back to Adideva Shiva. So in this way, the Vidya links you all the way back. And in our tradition, we have a concept of Tarka mantra. Tarka mantra, the mantra that is for the particular yuga that sails you across. And the Tarka mantra is Ram. So even in Hindu tradition, you go Vishwanath mantra, the Tarka mantra is Ram. And Ram Katha is Juga Juga Tal, as Guru Gobind Singh says. And as a consequence of Ram, so even like the Vaheguru mantra Sikhs use, if you look at ancient understandings of it, Vaheguru mantra basically derived from the name of Vishnu's name, Ram's, Gobind's and Hari. The all names of Vishnu. The first letters are taken and then you get Vaheguru mantra like. And that is, so the Vaheguru mantra is spoken as Ram mantra as well. Is Ram the mantra because Ram and Vishnu are one. So Hari, Gobind, Gopal, they're all the same. So the Ram that we're talking about is when you engage, unlike modern day, say if you do cage fighting, boxing, and so on. So like Jatin here, if Jatin comes here, so he's boxed for India and so on. He's done MMA, he's done all the kind of fightings and so on. So in their world, they work themselves up almost, I wouldn't say to an extreme frenzy and so on, but their approach to combat is very different. They want to exude aggression and so on. I mean, how does it? And then in Shatrudya, explain the difference.
Shastra Vidya is completely opposite to what we were doing in modern martial arts because I've done karate, boxing, and Muay Thai, MMA. So these kind of most of these modern martial arts they can be traced back maybe 200 or 250 or 300 years max. But Shastra Vidya, we have we have history over thousands of years ago, and it has been already evolved. It's highly evolved. When we see the techniques, the principles of Shastra Vidya, which seems completely opposite to what we were doing in modern martial arts. Initially, of course, we feel doubtful about them, but when we start studying it deeply, we realize it's all pure science. It's very, very scientific.
So in Shatrudya, we need to be in a relaxed state of mind and body to move like. Now this is easily understood. So when boxers and MMA fight, they are basically stripped down to their shorts. They're basically naked. That's how they're fighting. But the ancient Kshatriyas, from the times of Ramayana, Mahabharata, and even times of Shivaji Maratha and so on, and Rana Pratap, Guru Gobind Singh, they wore armor and chainmail. So your armor and chainmail, your sanjor, your bakhtar, for a foot soldier, it is up to about 17 kg, the lightest even. It could be much more than that. So it could be 17 to about 20 kg. And then on top of that, you'll have your, that's just your armor and chainmail. Your helmet will be up to a kg plus as well. Even your Damale turbans with chainmail stuff will go up to kg. And then you have swords. You have at least 3 swords, a couple of daggers, and your bunduk you're carrying. You might have a small mashk, which is leather bag to have water. And of course, something to eat as well, like some channe fried up and so on, or whatever, or churi, kutri, hoi, whatever. So you need all this. So you're basically carrying minimum around 22, 23 kg on your body. So as a consequence, the way you move with that much weight on your body is not going to be the same as you move when you have nothing on your body at all. So they learned how to move with gravity and so on. Now, India is not a cool place. The temperatures generally throughout, I mean, our winters are European summers. So think like this. If the human body goes, in terms of heat, goes above 37.5 centigrade, your organs will start switching off and you will die. Simple as that. So that's why we sweat, to keep cool and so on. Now, if you're encased in armor and chainmail, and then you're moving muscular, you'll be dead. Not because some enemies cut you down. It's just because you generated heat that much that you just switch your own body off. So the Indians learned how to move in a way, foot soldiers. Now, if you're horseback, your armor will be twice as heavy. I mean, Rana Pratap, they said his armor was 50 kg. I mean, there's people here who know 50 kg. So he's carrying 50 kg armor, he's fully encased, because on horseback, they're going to charge into the enemy and they need heavy armor so arrows and stuff don't penetrate them. But on foot soldiers, if you have 22 kg, you're carrying that, which is also true for modern day soldiers, because modern day soldiers also have to carry their backpacks and all this as well, like, except the ancient ones, they wore armor and chainmail and so on. And as a consequence, the way you move with armor and chainmail is by spilling your body mass ahead of your center of gravity. And the ancient Indians, the Kshatriya, they learned to do that in a very intricate way. They learned to do it with shoulders, they moved on to shoulder blades, then they learned to move with the spine, and then they also understood how to do prakshipan by projecting mass from different parts of the body. Just in case one part got injured or so on, they can then go around and say they can project from the chest, they can project from the thighs, even from the feet, even from the fingers they can project as well, mass. So your mass basically, when you project, it means it goes outside your body basically. You project it ahead and he drags you and he moves you and so on. Now these are very sophisticated understandings of body mechanics and so on. And they learned to move in such a way that they were moving quicker than their mind can track. So the ancient Indians understood your eyesight works at speed at 0.25 seconds. So any object you see, it takes about 0.25 seconds for you to register it. Your hearing is a bit quicker at 0.17 seconds. And your touch is faster at 0.15 seconds. If you just touch, you register. But if you sometimes things touch you and you think about it, what's touching me? Then it goes down to 0.2 seconds. The ancient Rishi Munis understood this, that there's a differentiation between how fast the eye picks things up, how fast the ears pick things up, and how our touch works. And they also understood, like the mind. So the quickest you can think is 0.15 seconds. But if you think about it, slow down, it'll be 0.2 seconds, same as touch. But a reflex action is like if something comes towards your eye and you don't think about it, you just like blink. Or say you're cooking or something and then your hand strays towards the fire and suddenly you pull back. That's a reflex action, meaning an action done without you thinking.
Is that the muscle memory that modern...
Not necessarily, no, that's different altogether.
Different.
This is a reflex action to get you out of safety. So reflex actions happen at 0.08 seconds. I mean, modern day science gives you the measurements and so on. And so in Chaturya, because we're working with gravity, we're going to move at a rate of gravity. That's like 9.81 meters per second, which then translates, now in ancient Rishi Munis didn't have any stopwatches, okay? But what they had was blinking. Okay, so if you blink, your fastest blink is between 100 to 150 a second. So if you blink very fast, 150 seconds. So blinks, so that when they move, they start thinking in blinks. So in Chaturya, we have concept Chand and Prachand, Devi Ma. Chand is a movement that is done at single blink, between 100 to 150 a second. And a Prachand is a movement done at about 300th of a second. So it's double the speed and so on. And that's the rate of movement they have in Shastra Vidya. And also they understood moving gravity, we're going from 0 to 60 in 2.7 seconds. We're moving 9.1 meters per second squared. So this kind of movement only can happen physically, humanly possible, only with gravity, no other ways and so on. So in ancient writings, you have things like it's called Mante Tante Chalyo Jagamat Ko. So Guru Gobind Singh says that the goddess's body moved faster than the mind could. So before the opponent can think what's happening, you already moved, like they can't see you. So that's why when you see my videos and you see people falling back because they can't, because I'm moving at that kind of speed. I'm moving with the speed of a single blink, half a blink. So by the time their mind is registered, because their mind works at the speed of 0.15 seconds to 0.2 seconds. And under pressure, that can even slow down. So if the pressure, I mean, in Chaturya, you're going to have pressure. When someone's going to punch you in the face, strike in the head with a sota or something, of course there's going to be pressure. And then this is under ideal conditions, you're working at 0.15 seconds. Under pressure, so or between 1.5 seconds to 2.2 seconds. But under pressure,
it goes down.
It goes down. Like, I mean, how many times you hear students who revise so much and they went to exam and then their brain switches off because they're so intensely they want to do the exam, and then it's so much pressure that everything just goes.
It shuts down.
It's like those guys who go learn driving, then the day the test comes, they freeze. The brain doesn't work. So with Chaturvidya, we're not doing a sport. So if you go to say MMA fight and so on, is there a chance you can get killed? Maybe. Very slow, but there's a lot of precautions taken. They've taken out everything that is extremely dangerous. No eye shots, no throat shots, no neck strikes, no twisting necks or attacking vertebrates, and of course no weapons and so on. And it's not multiples, etc. and so on. So they're into a violent sport, but it's not the real thing.
But with rules.
With rules and so on. Now,
That
the way
wasn't the
Chaturvidya
case.
works is, we also have sparring, but we have to be, so we get to the point of killing without killing, point of extreme injury without injury. Just like in modern day army, like when they are training soldiers, they will what you call fire guns, so they get used to the guns. They'll fire maybe shots over their heads and so on, so they get used to bullets flying over their heads and so on. But no, they're not going to go around shooting their soldiers or blowing them up. So what we have now in Chaturvidya is, this is how the Rishi Munis are so clever, like. And modern martial arts are only recently finding out, within the last 6 months or the last year or so, they're finding this understanding. We have a concept called Bagh Bachi Dikhed. Okay. Bagh Bachi Dikhed.
Bagh Bachi.
Bachi Dikhed. So Bagh in Punjabi means a leopard,
Leopard.
but you can mean a tiger as well. So the games of leopard cubs. So when tigers, leopards or lions, even your dog or your cat, when they practice for fighting and hunting, so they need to fight so they can fight for mates and stuff when they get older, they will basically, the little cubs, they'll engage, they'll fight, they'll sort of wrestle and fight with each other, but they have a innate understanding, instinctual, that the claws have to be retracted, not protracted, so they don't cut each other. And when they grab each other, but say they may get to the point where they grab each other's throat or neck, they won't sink their teeth in because they're not trying to kill each other. Even your dogs, like if your dogs, when they play fight, they have rules that they won't slam each other down too hard, they won't bite each other too hard. They might do a little nip, but that's about it, because they're basically training to do the real thing. And no one's going to train with you to do the real thing if you're hurting each other. So in Chaturvidya, the ancient Rishi Munis also took this understanding on board. And then they began to, so when the warriors and Kshatriyas train, so first they do Jussakamona, physique building. So they build their physiques in a particular way. So if you're too skinny, then you'll build your body just like modern day bodybuilders do, with eating the right amount of protein to what you call to your body mass, and then lifting weights and so on, and building your stamina through running and swimming. So even the way you're running and swimming and lifting weights is different because of the body mechanics. You build your physiques, normally first using just muscle directly, then you build what's called tendon strength and bone density. So even if I look at my body now, I don't look like 98 kg, but because I've increased the density of my muscles and the density of my bones, I can be 98 without being it. So whereas modern day muscles, bodybuilders, muscles sort of flop up and so on. Whereas us, our muscles are contained,
Contracting.
but they're dense in terms of like structure wise and so on, and they can expand, not relax, expand. We make a distinction between that. As a consequence, you have Sadul Sarir, and thus let me give you an example of this. So when Angada went to Ravan's court, he put his foot down, and he then challenged Udarakesh to lift his foot. Now, everybody knows that story, and everybody failed. All the Rakshas failed at the time. And the question is, how is that done? Our ancestors understood how to fill that foot, that leg with punja, with dravyaman, with their mass. So by just relaxing in a particular way, they can take their mass down into the foot and so on. I mean, these guys will tell you, like when Yogditya, come this way. So when I relax down my legs, the sensation you feel, he'll tell you what he feels like. Because he's a bodybuilder, so he knows his body's like that. What does it feel like when you relax down the leg? When
Gurudevji is relaxing, you can actually feel the relaxation going down and fluid water that's filling up his muscles and they are expanding. And this is what Gurudev was talking about, the buoyant power. When you relax and then you compress that water, which gives that buoyant force, which he uses in his movements and his strikes. and it is, you can say it's phenomenal.
And then knowing that, we have the muscles, the relaxation, and when the skeletal tension and the muscular tension that now is gone, underneath, so in the West now, understanding of fascia is very new, like last 10, 20 years. In ancient India, in Chaturda, we already had an understanding of Reshmi Resha, which is a phlegm-like, it's called a silky kind of, so they already understood about fascia. So that fascia then gets released, and that's what he's talking about, the expansion underneath. So it feels like when you relax, that it fills up, like a watery kind of filling up, because fascia is water. So the Indians had this understanding long time ago, just like they had an understanding of marmas, vital points, that certain areas you attack and so on will be lethal, others be, it's called, knock out your respiratory system and so on. And that also came on the battlefield. So the earliest mention of marma is found in the Rig Veda, where it's called Indra kills, it's called the Ahi, it's called the dragon, striking with the Vajra on his marma, the first marma there. So then later on, they were codified by rishis like Rishi Shurt, who was a surgeon. He writes about marmas from a surgical perspective, like that when you're operating, doing this, do not cut here, do not stab here, don't do this, it will kill, and so on. But the Kshatriyas is where the knowledge of marma come, because after, on the battlefield, and like I said, the Indians from the very day one, it's all because we are devotees of Brahm. So Brahm is the infinite. So we are studiers of the infinite. So the people who know Brahm are known as Brahm Gyanis. And Brahm Gyani ka bhojan gyan. The food of a Brahm Gyani is gyan like. So everything they did, our ancestors, was soch and samj. They would call thought and they try to understand. So they didn't live life just going through life and but they thought and they understood. They tried to understand everything they could and so on. So as a consequence, these astute warriors, they figured things out about marmas. They worked out about fascia. They understood to work with gravity, even from a health perspective. How many people nowadays suffer from bad knees, bad back, bad joints? Because a lot of this is just to do with the wear and tear of what's called life. And a lot of this wear and tear is due to bad posture, bad body mechanics, and so on. Even things like sitting in a chair, like you sit in a chair that is too low and it compresses your spine or compresses your knee, it's gonna cause damage to the knee. So the ancient Rishi Munis understood that. They understood that if you work with gravity, move with gravity, then the wear and tear is going to be decreased. I mean, everything's okay. In time, with time, everybody's going to go old and everybody's going to be worn down with time. That's inevitable, like. But Atma Pradesh pe sanjam ko jap so japa jape kanchan si kaya re kala ko vyape. Guru Gobind says. So the teaching of your Atma is to live a life of sanjam, like discipline, self-control, and so on. So Gyan, Dhyan, and Virag, wisdom, focus, and detachment, we still engage with the world. That's the chief virtue of Chaturvidya. And as a consequence, having understanding of working with gravity, your wear and tear is less. So I'm now nearly 60 years old, like, but I can outmaneuver and I can carry on for days on end without tiring. So by using this method, whatever you run, it'll increase fourfold. Whatever you lift, it will increase. I mean, he lifts weights, like, and you'll just tell him what's the difference between lifting weights with this, the power. Since we introduced this to him, I'll use him.
Lifting weights with the Sanatana Shastra, with their method of expansion and relaxation, it gives you very much, you can say, compared to a high percentile of power as compared to the normal muscle lifting work. And these two worlds of bodybuilding and Sanatana Shastra, they are not enemies of each other, they are complementary.
They're complementary.
Yeah, we need to gain mass first to relax. And then you can, using this added mass, then you relax and you can lift more. So that is the basic understanding.
And also, another thing is, so a lot of normal kind of Western training, which we say like akkade and so on, there's a lot of what's called the muscles get sore. And then the next day, the recovery period is longer. Right. Whereas with this kind of training, I can train like this 3-4 hours a day, lifting weights, running, swimming, and all of it, even at my age, even much more older. And I can do it 365 days a week, a year, sorry. So all through the year, I can train like this. So
And recovery time is not required.
there's no recovery time because it's just the way they do it is they're not taking the muscles to break, they're just taking that far. And okay, the strength is like turtle is you build strength slowly, but it's more permanently lasting rather than right away and so on. And then it almost becomes like a meditation and so on because we're relaxing and so on. So in the Indian tradition, our Sanatan Bharatiya tradition, each morning begins at sunrise, traditionally, the Brahma Muhurat, Amrit Vela as we call it. And the idea is to rise, look in the sun, let that sun come in. So that is very healthy for the brain as well. And then you meditate. And you meditate and you relax the total body and so on. So whatever, and you use for meditation, you use whatever mantra that is your family mantra, Ishdev and so on. So whether it's Ram, Gobind, Gopal, Vaheguru, whatever your mantra is, whatever you have reverence for, so on. Something in such a mantra where you have such reverence that you will focus like.
Surya Namaskar is also.
Yeah, that's 100% as well. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. And that's 100%. And that's a meditation type as well. So they do this meditation, they relax, they settle, they calm, collect the mind. And then in terms of training, they will go through all the techniques and stuff in the mind, the tactics and stuff. Otherwise, any kind of work, say I'm going to travel from here to Goa or somewhere, I can meditate, relax, my mind's focused, is concentrated, settled, and then I can plan my journey in that kind of state of being. And then when you train, like I said, also we take that state of being a Ram. So the state of Ram is being instead of being a Ram, like calm, collected. We take that state of Ram, apply it to our training, and when we spar or fight, what we do it in such a calm, relaxed way because we have armor and chem on the old days moving, that we don't trigger our cortisols. So just like those tigers when they play with each other and so on. So we fight with not. So in other words, the concept of karma is a big thing in India. That if you do such an action, every word you speak, every action you do, every thought you have has potential of creating karma. Okay, so you can, if you think of, say, if I thought of stealing something from here, say, and even though that I couldn't steal anything because you guys sitting around here, the fact that I had an intention of doing that, not just a thought, the intention of doing that, and whether it came back or not, that's still pop. And then of course, if I did it, then it's a prad. But on the other hand, if I came here and I looked around and said, well, that could be stolen, that could be stolen, that could be stolen, and you need to do this, this, this. In other words, I'm thinking like a thief to prevent a thief. That's not pop. Thought is not the pop. It's the intent behind it. So Vishatur there, like I said, is in a calm state around. We train, we fight, we prevent the cortisol from rising. By relaxing and breathing from here, the heart, the chest cavity also gets bigger, and most human hearts, they are like not fully what's called open. They're compressed in the chest. So by relaxing here, the cavity opening, what happens is the heart can expand to its full natural state, and you can feel that. And then if you look at happiness and fear, when you're afraid, extremely afraid, your heart will get squeezed. You feel like there's a bulge in the heart, there's a heaviness in the heart and so on. And some people get so, the fear is such, if it's over a long period of time, depression comes in. At night time when they sleep, it's like someone's pushing down the chest or sitting on the chest, and then that can lead to what's called hallucinations, whatever, and so on, because you're not sleeping properly, not eating properly. But when you're happy, in Punjabi, your heart is blossoming, your arm is big, your heart is big, and so on. So same with Chatur there. So we want to fight with the heart blossoming and so on. So Guru Nanak says, like he makes forget, he says Karma Khand, the sphere of action, where you are leading by example. So Rama did not preach or so on. He led by example. If someone preaches all he wants, he can preach, but his actions are contrary to what he preaches. Yeah, there's a kathni karni mein fark. It ain't gonna have the impact. So you need the karni and so on. So they say in the sphere of action, karm khand ki bani jor, tithe hor na koi hor. In the state of karm khand, says Guru Nanak Dev, in the fourth spiritual state, just one before the absolute, there, karm khand ki bani jor, the words there have power, like, and there's no one there. Who's there? Tithe hor na koi, tithe jod mahabal sur, only great warriors. Because the warriors we're talking about is not just external warriors, but those who can subdue Ravan and his armies within. So Ravan to us is also ignorance. Ravan is Hankar. Hankar is also Abhek. Abhek means ignorance. And the vices.
Antardvand.
Those calm, krodh, lobh, moh, all the ikha, whatever, the jealousy, the anger, the hatred, the discrimination, all these vices are the armies of Ravan. And then all the Devi Gun, Sat Santokh, they are Dharmadhij of Ram. So these are always fighting in our mind. So within us, we have Depurush, we have Raksh, we have Manav. So we can, whoever we go towards, if we go towards Rakesh, we become Rakesh. If we behave like Ram. So in Shaturudaya, when we teach you, we give you, we said two things are going to happen when you learn Shaturudaya. See, Ramchandra had Shaturudaya. Ravan also had Shaturudaya. They fought the same way. Now, Ravan initially was a great Bhakt of Shiv, and he was a great Mahapurush, a man of great knowledge and wisdom and so on, and you can easily bow to him. So even at the end of battle, even Sri Ramchandra says to Lakshman, go and take some Brahm Gyan from Ravan. Because he was a great person one time. But what happened at the end, he went so high, but then Hankar took over.
He couldn't control his vices.
Yeah, power. So Hankar came, ego came, and then he went down a slippery road like. But Ravan Rishi was great, but later on, then Hankar took him over. And so that we have to worry about that as well. Hankar is there as well, like, and there's those vices there. So Karm Kand ki bani jyot te ho na kohe te jyot mahabasur tin mein Ram reha parpur. So such warriors who tin mein, in them, Ram reha. Ram is, they're full of Ram, like. There's Ram inside them. They are filled with Ram, like. Every room, there's Ram, like. Just like that famous picture of Hanuman when he opened chest, there's Ram inside, like. That famous katha where he's breaking the beads, the pearls with his teeth, and they think he's just a monkey. He goes, no, I'm looking for this Ram in there. So the value of Ram, and if you have Ram, you have Aram, a relaxed state of being, a happy state of being, a sense of fulfillment, purpur state of being. And that state of being cannot be sacrificed. On the battle, if you think about committing sin in everyday life is great, what about in battle like? There's much more, because you're now aiming, you're going to take life, you're going to commit violence and so on. So if you act out of rage and so on. So the Indian Rishi Munis understood there's Bhiras and there's Rudras. So Rudras means when you lose all, you don't care, you lost all control. So when Sati fell into the fires and then Shiv took her body up and starts dancing, the Tandav, eventually Vishnu came through the chakras and dismembered the body to wake Shiva out of that rage. So when you have Rudras, it means uncontrolled rage. This can happen on the battlefield, but the Kshatriya wants to have Bhiras. Veer is a warrior. And this Bhiras, you have Dharam, Daya, Dhan, Yuddha. Dharam, Daya, Dhan. You must maintain your sense of Dharma. And the root of all Dharma, Dharma ka mool is Daya. And then you must have Daya, like, because Dharma and Daya go together. If you claim to have Dharma and there's no Daya in you, there's no. And the next is Yuddha, Dhani. So the ones who are true warriors, or they are dane bine, like they would call, like, they're wise and they're charitable, they give out. So if you take one step towards them, they take 1,000 steps towards you, like. So they're giving you this knowledge, they're not holding it back and so on. So Dharam Daya Dhan, then Yudh. So Devi Gun has to be there, like, otherwise on a field of battle, in a state of, so to fight in anger or hate is Ravan Birti. It has to be done within the reins of Dharma and so on. So with Shaturudaya, that's what they say. So when you're fighting in anger, whatever and so on, or you're fighting even for money, like modern day sports, they are fighting for Shohrat, they want fame, they want wealth, and many of them nowadays, they will sacrifice their health for it. So they'll take steroids and so on that will destroy their body, and they may destroy their body, but they want that fame and they want that wealth and all this that goes with it. In Shaturudaya, it's never like this. In Shatru, there's a combat art and there's art of finesse and so on. Because of blades and weapons and firearms and unarmed and so on. So the dharmic element is it's not just called integral part of it. The whole Vidya, in Punjabi say parosi hui. Parosi hui? Served in a plate of dharma, like, and so on. That you cannot, because at the end of the day, we're teaching you how to wield weapons that can take life. We're teaching you techniques that minimum is going to pop out your eyes, break arms and legs and so on. So we have to be highly responsible. So every time we start, so even the word like, so the first techniques, it begins with the salutation to Bhairo, Bandate si kal Bhairo, Mahabhair, Udaphair, Jatakuru. Now, what does he mean by that? I'll give you an example of this. So we have opportunity now to explore the philosophy of it. So Bhairo means the horrific one. And there's a myth that one time Brahma, he created Satrupa, his daughter, and he was to create. But then utte moit ho gaya. He became fascinated by her. And for a moment he lost his mind and began to lust for her. And she went everywhere in all directions and escaped from him. Hence the 5 heads came. And then eventually Shiva appeared and he with Animaka, this finger, he cut off their head. And then that attached, the kopri, the skull attached to his head and became Bhairo-like. Now these are myths. And whereas when I speak of this in the West and so on, and I said, you may take these as just stories and myths and so on, but think of it another way. Think of them as packages. If I want to send, say, this phone to, say, America, I will package it, and then I'll post it, whatever, get the courage to do it. If I didn't have the package around it, it'll be lost. So our myths are basically packages of certain truths and wisdom and knowledge that's come down. And these myths have come down thousands of years, hence they survived. And so the object within the package may be that much, but the package may be so much, but the package is required like. So in this myth, this is the beautiful thing about it. So the first thing about Brahma lusting for his daughter, it shows that even someone like Brahma, who's authoritative of the Vedas and so on, and he's the proper Brahmagyan, even he can be enticed by lust. So who are we like? So we have to be careful against lust and so on. Then Bhairo, he takes a horrific form because Shiv takes a horrific form because he's done Brahmatya. And Brahmatya here means not Brahmins, that people say, oh, Brahmins. Brahmin means the ones who know Brahm, ones people with knowledge. Any society that starts targeting its so-called knowledgeable citizens of wisdom and gyan and dhyan is going to suffer. That's what Pol Pot did. He started killing everybody who was anybody educated. The Chinese did the same as well in the Chinese Revolution. Anybody who's half knowledgeable in whatever past knowledge, they start to kill off. But if you start doing that, the society is going to crumble. If all the intelligent, educated people are targeted. We need to nurture the educated people, the wise people, the intelligent people. And as a consequence, Brahmatya attached to Shiva. And then he took on a horrific form called Bhairo. He wandered around the lands with a trail of Bhoot, Pret and everything behind him. And then the story myth goes, he came to Deodar forest, which is basically pinewood trees, like in north, whatever. And there lived the Rishi Munis, the sages. And those Rishi Munis were Gresti, they had wives and so on. The Rishi Munis were out. And when Shiva came there, they first saw Shiv, they saw this horrific form, Bhairo with Bhoot, Pret, he was naked. He had an ithpalic phallus, meaning erect phallus. And they were like shocked, the ladies. But they were also the wives of Rishi Munis, so they were also enlightened ladies. A lot of people forget the Rishi Munis in Indian tradition are both male and female. A lot of people forget
Rishikas.
that. Rishikas exist as well. Like, and the Rishikas, when they saw, then they realized with Bhairo there was a deer, a little deer, with the Bishku form of Bhairo, and they realized now the deer represents something benign and innocent like a child. And if you look at the Pashupati seals of Harappa Mohenjo-daro, even there, the Pashupat sitting there has a deer with him. And this deer symbology with Shiva goes throughout history, like, so it's very, very ancient. Like.
Chanchal Pravritti.
Yeah. So the deer also some benign and kind. And the Rishikas, they understood that this is nothing to be feared. So there's a saying we have in the Khada which says, do not fear, but understand. ਡਰੀਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸਮਝੀਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ Do not fear, but understand. Once you have understanding of something, the fear will go. Like, as soon as they understood that this is nothing to be feared, because the deer is there with them, they saw Shiv. And then they came and they bowed and they offered or bhiksha, whatever they gave. And then they sat down, they listened to the Brahmgyan from Shiv. But when their husbands came, they also at first just saw something horrific. And their wives sitting around, their sadhu and so on, like this, half all naked and so on. And they were angered. And as they came in anger, but their wives, who were very sharp, they stepped up and told them to, look there, there's the deer. So they then understood and they asked forgiveness and sat down and so on. So from this tale, he says, then the rishis understood. And what did they understand? They said, nothing is to be feared, everything is to be understood. Then Shiva in this myth eventually goes to Banaras, Kashi, and then the skull falls up, and then we have the Emirates. But the story, the bottom line here in this myth, if the myth is the package, what's the nugget inside? The nugget inside is nothing to be feared, everything to be understood. Now, if you look at Indian tradition now, Rag Bhairo is the morning rag. It's the rag of Shant, peace. I mean, if you say, this is the horrific rag. Like the Rag Bhairo means the horrific raga. But it is played at Amrit Birla, it's played at Brahmmurat in the morning. Because it's supposed to be, it is Shantras. Now, the deeper meaning of this is understood. You will only attain Shanti if you confront your fears and understand them.
Not running away from them.
Not running away. So in Shaturdaya, throughout Shaturdaya, every aspect of the Vidya has these myths from the Sanatana tradition. So, because that's the only way these techniques could survive, like. Otherwise, these understandings, these principles, the philosophy of God. So they're the same myths that we have generally throughout India, but they give different interpretations of them and so on. Because everybody uses them slightly different ways. So like this is another way of proving they're Sanatan. So things like when you demonstrate, I put my foot down, you can't lift it, that's like Angad. In the Mahabharata, when Krishna gets angered by Bhisham, who's provoking him deliberately, then Arjun's trying to restrain him and he's just getting dragged along. When you demonstrate that, you can say, oh, that's that there. Like, so this way we can take the Vidya back, because you got to ask, is how do I know it's Sanatan? Like, how come are you not just making it up and so on? So in the West, the Sikhs go, how can it can't be Sanatan. Some of the Khalistine types, it's not going to start. I said, look, Sada Dharma Kshatriya ko chalo Sanatan ai. That's written in Sikh texts. Sada Dharma Kshatriya ko. Kshatriya supat sundar lage. So the form of the Kshatriya is beautiful. Sirkes is Pagabande. That's Kshatriya Srup and so on. Sanatanta Meri Prabh Safal. Make my Sanatan Dharma successful, says Guru Gobind Singh. Hindu Dharam Jage, Turk Danta Pajje. The Dharma of the Hindus, let it be awakened. And of the Turks, the Mughals, their teeth be smashed, they be destroyed. Because Guru Gobind Singh was trying to revive. And the way he envisaged reviving is through reviving the Kshatriya spirit. We Indians go outside, and if you look at all the big CEOs in many companies nowadays, they are Indians. And in terms of education, Indians, whereas in the diaspora, or whereas in India, we emphasize education. Education is emphasized, and we're very good at it. We're super smart. So in the West, and around the world in general that I've seen, Indians are spoken of as nerds. That they're very nerdy and very clever, like. But at the same time, they're not spoken of as warriors in a heroic sense or anything like that. Because that side has been eclipsed. Okay, so we had Mahatma Gandhi. Nothing against Mahatma Gandhi. That's one beautiful aspect of Indian culture as well. Ahimsa. Guru Gobind Singh says, it's called Hinsa Dharma Tyago, Kima Dharma Rago. He says, so once the Buddhists learn, they teach you this. Hinsa Dharmat. Violence and evil thinking, Tyago, forsake. Kima Dharma, learn, and it's called Kima Dharma Rago, and love the Dharma of forgiveness. Okay? So our culture is a nurturing, it's a forgiving culture, and so on. Our understanding of Dharma is that its root has to be compassion. The whole time, because the whole sport underneath Dharma is compassion. So compassion is the key thing. So, but at the same time, where there may be what's called Hinsa Parama Dharma, that's one side, and there's the other line that follows afterwards that tells you, for righteous cause, that says Guru Gobind Singh, that when all other means, avenues are being explored to attain justice as a last resort, we have a right to defend ourselves. Even the Manusmriti says that every jat, every caste has a right to defend and protect itself. And so throughout history, we all are gods, from Shiva to Devi Ma to Vishnu Bhagwan to Krishna Maharaj to Sri Ramchandra Ji, Ganesh even. They're all Shastatari. They all have weapons. To this day, when we go to temples, you can see the gods with their weapons and so on. So, one hand, we have that deep understanding of like the Veda, Vedanta, and spirituality. But our ancestors weren't naive that they put all the eggs in one basket, as they say in English. So they kept the Gyan Kharg and the Lo Kharg, the sword of steel and the sword of what's called knowledge as well, wisdom, together. And this is what Chaturya represents. So Chaturya, when you study Chaturya, they, as we say, paroske, like. So basically, they give you this knowledge, and but he exposes you to the whole plethora of Sanatan tradition and so on. And as a consequence, young men, Indians in particular and so on, they are getting introduced to our history, our philosophy, our traditions, and the depths of our spirituality. Whereas normally young men, I mean, many young men now who are like fighting types and all this, they look towards the West for inspirations and so on. And again, if you associate like India with say Mahatma Gandhi and the pacifism and so on, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's also Shivaji Maratha. There's also Rana Pratap, Rana Sangha. There's Prithviraj Chauhan, there's Guru Gobind Singh, Guru Hargobind. There's all these ancient warriors and so on, who also have an equal state, if not more so, who sacrificed their lives, their families, and so on. Guru Gobind Singh sacrificed 22 members of his family, including his children, his mother and father and everybody, to keep this nation as it is, and so on. So as a consequence, when you have all that Kshatriyas, this Chaturya is always there is to honor them, like honor the Devi, like. So we say like Tuj Pujan Veer Banayat hai Kshatri Maha Khartari Mahatej Atri. So Tuj Pujan Veer Banayat, to the warriors, the Veer were created to worship you, O goddess. They are the Maha Khartari. They're the ones who wield the great sword, and they're the great Kshatriyas. So that's a common link in all our Indian traditions. Whether you go to even Kalari today, or you go to any kind of martial tradition in India, Devi worship is there. Chandi, she who is Chand and Prachand, the fierce and the ferocious. And technically that means moving quicker than a single blink and half a blink and so on. So this, like Guru Gobind Singh, he envisaged, so I'm a Nahang, I'm Burdal, and I will unashamedly tell you right away, I am on the same mission as what Guru Gobind Singh set us. Same mission. Guru Gobind Singh's mission was to create a 96 crore Khalsa, like. But the word Khalsa here means like people of pure souls who are like Ram with Devi Gun and so on. It doesn't mean people dressed like me or whatever. So the Panchadev, no one in the Sanatan world is going to object. If someone is now a devotee of Shiva, he's not going to object to Vishnu. Because in our Sanatan tradition, Vishnu's guru is Shiva, Shiva's guru is Vishnu. Okay? And then, if the Adi Shakti is there, no one's going to object to the Adi Shakti. She's the mother of all, like. And Vishnu and Shiva, Ram and Krishna Maharaj, they are Vishnu. They're the same as well. So, whatever your belief systems are, like, in your Sanatan world, whatever your each personal day, that's fine, like. And the aim of Guru Gobind Singh was, he brought in the Vaishnava tradition, the Shakti tradition, and the Shiva tradition, brought them all together and told them, look, get united, like. Because until you are united, you're going to be weak. You're going to be ekajut, and so on. So even the Nahang dress, if you look at the dress here, so the arrow is a symbol of Ram. These fangs here, these are Vasuki. Then there's a Trsul there. The turban is the Ganges. Nilabani, Kalima, and also Vishnu. And of course, the Shastra, linked with particular gods and goddesses and so on. The Kada is of Shiv. And so the idea of bringing everybody together to making a strong Sanatan. So in terms of Guru Gobind Singh, they didn't think in terms of nation. They thought in terms of Sanatan culture, like. So wherever you found, if I walked so far, and then there was a temple of, say, of the Pandus, I went so far, and there's a temple of, say, Devi, and wherever there are temples, that marked the land of the Sanatan world, like that. The Sanatan influence is there, like. So uniting that world together. So it's called Sagal Hinte Turk Badarung, that the oppressors get rid of them. Sagal Hind, all Hind together. That is the idea. Shaturudya, if you study Shaturudya, these young men has been studying now. On one hand, exposed to the culture, the history, the traditions, and this is the exposure is done in a super intelligent way. That so even if I get students I get Arabs from Egypt, I get Africans, I get Chinese, I get Japanese, and so on. And before them, like anybody, like we can't be ashamed of our culture, our history, our traditions, and so on. And so no matter what their culture, what their history, tradition, we respect that. But they also have to respect our culture, our history, our traditions as well. We're not against theirs, and there's no reason why they should be against ours, like. So when the root of all dharma is compassion, they shouldn't be there, like. So in that sense, this also bridges people across what's called cultures and histories and traditions and so on. So whereas someone like in Europe and so on, they may just want the fighting techniques, and they get exposed to Indian culture, history. So that sense is soft power around the world. So those people thinking, oh, Indians are just nerds. Now they're thinking, hang on a minute, they're not just nerds. I mean, I heard people say that Indians are nerds, and even their martial art, the Shatrudya, is nerdy as well, because it's intelligent. It's not just stupid. So that's a compliment in that sense of the word. And so we're exposing the rest of the world to our culture. So if you look at now China and Japan, and look at Japan with the samurai, everybody knows about samurai. Chinese with the kung fu and so on. The image that comes across with that, and then with India is Kshatriya. And the sad thing is, like, a lot of the older Chinese and Japanese, they trace their martial arts back to India.
Dakshina.
That's it. So the Kshatriyas, so this is there, but our martial arts are not known, traditions are not known, because a lot of our martial arts in this country. So this Kshatriya tradition of ours is what's lacking in Bharat now, really. So, like I said, with Birju Maharaj and all that, they revived all the Kathak dancing, others have revived Bharatiya Natam. Gurukuls are now appearing as well. Like one time, Gurukuls had Shatrudya inside them as well, like taught.
It was a part of it.
Yeah, part of it. Like, and I mean, Guru Gobind Singh gives a beautiful description in his Gyan Prabodh, where he talks about an ancient Gurukul. And he talks about they're learning linguistics, they're learning what you call music, they're learning Vedantic science, and they're learning all forms of martial arts, tradition, Shatrudya, and so on. So it's a complete system they're learning. But it was all framed within dharmic understanding, because they're producing people of moral character. Like, they don't want to produce a bunch of assholes, like. And with Shatrudya, because we're teaching you lethal skills. Okay, so obviously, with little children, we teach kids, like small children, 5 to 7, the skills that are taught them are those skills that will prevent them from being bullied at school. So we teach them nothing offensive, because we don't want we don't want children hurting children. When it comes to teenagers, we teach them offensive techniques, but nothing lethal, for obvious reasons. We don't want them in prison. But it depends. And then when it comes to males, when it comes to adults, then for males and females, techniques are taught which will cover self-defense that you can practically use now, and then also the classical stuff, which even the classical techniques of moving in a stabilized manner and fighting, which can be utilized for modern day firearms with the army and the military, I still teach today. So even soldiers and modern day army and what's called police can take advantage of this as well. So the art is super sophisticated. If you just go onto the testimonials on the app, it's not point me blowing my own trumpet, like. You can hear from actual people who have experienced this art and who are martial arts experts and so on. We have a beautiful, powerful culture, like Sanatan culture, and if you were to go into the depths of it, it's rich beyond measure and so on. And Sanatan Vidya, Shatra Vidya, as I say, is a Upaved, is a knowledge of Upaved. We have the 4 Veds, the Rig Ved and so on, Yajurved, Samved, which are the anchor, the cornerstone of our spiritual traditions and so on. Vidyam and Namuttam says Gurbani as well. Like so, then we have 4 Upaveds, which are the cornerstone of our what you call culture, like how to build our cities, music, our dancing, everything else, and then Chaturday as well. Chaturday should not be just viewed as something that teaches you how to wield a sword or knife, unarmed combat, how to shoot guns, all this and so on. It's more than that. Chaturvidya will make into what we will Nahangs we say low purush. The word low means iron, it means steel, it also means light, it also means enlightened. So you become an enlightened warrior, a Kshatriya. You become what we term as a Sajjan Sura. Sajjan Sura, a noble warrior. That's what it's meant to be there. And is described called Dubda Mare So Sura. He who kills his sense of duality is the warrior like. So Shaturda is all about annihilating duality because we are Advait. And even in the physical expression of the art, that's what we're trying to do. Every movement comes from a neutral state and then one. And then the one becomes the infinite. And so on. Just like in Vedanta, from the Shunne, the void, one, and then so on. Mahashunte Utpanameri, says Guru Gobind Singh. I have emerged from the great Shunne. And the Vidya emerges from the great Shunne as well. So in that sense, you are present when young men or young women, and not even young, old, because the Vidya is not muscle-based, it's not athletic-based. Your fast twitch muscles that sprinters and boxers and others use, they fade away by the age of 25. They start going less. Your slow twitch muscles, which marathon runners and say rowers use, they do about 45. They're going. We bypass. Our Rishi Munis understood how to bypass both fast twitch and slow twitch. As a consequence, my speed is not going to be compromised because I'm not moving with those fast twitch muscles. My stamina is not going to be compromised because I'm not using those slow twitch muscles, and I can carry on to a very good old age. And if you look at in our traditions, Bhushan, Dronachar, Baba Deep Singh, Natha Singh in the Sikh tradition, they were elderly warriors. Baba Ram Singh Bedi, 90-year-old, he's still able to fight. So this Vidya offers, in terms of health, in terms of connecting with culture, history, philosophy, and in terms of pride, the pride that young people feel that in their culture, history, and it's not a false pride, not an egoistical pride, in the sense that we're superior to them and this, because that's all Ravaniti again. No. Ram is humble, is humility like. So as a consequence, Ramdi Vidya, as we're talking about, is a powerful Vidya that is imbued with all that is, I can say, beautiful and worthy in Indian culture and so on. So when people come and study with me, we look at them. I mean, if they just want to be fighters, I'm not really that much interested in them. If they want to be just what's called a bit of health and all, that's fine, but all right. But at the end of the day, this is almost like a blood transfusion. The Kshatriya element that for so long was banned by the British when they came in, and then with the independence, the emphasis became on non-violence and so on. Hence, China invaded and took the land.
We lost our protectors.
Yeah, lost our
Kshatriyas were the
protectors. The Kshatriyas, like, and the Kshatriyas for a long time were misunderstood. I mean, if I remember correctly, like, and I mean, some people say it's not his quote, but they say Gandhi said he spoke of Pullar Desh Bhakt, Pulle Hue, misguided, that's called Bhakts of the nation. And thus were described people like Guru Gobind Singh, Rana Pratap, Shivaji Marathe, and so on. They were not pulled. They were on the correct path, like, and so on. To live a life of pure freedom and happiness, you need to have strength. Okay, you need to have what's called bahubal. Ko kisko raj na de hai, jo le hai nij bal se le hai. That's Guru Gobind Singh said that. No one's going to give you a kingdom, and no one, you got to with your own power, like. So on, Dharm bin sab chale, it's called Raj bin Dharm na chale hai, Dharm bin sab chale male hai. को किसको राज न दे है, जो ले है निज बल से ले है. So Guru Gobind Singh spoke of this all those centuries ago, that dharm bin raj na chale hai, that you need dharma in order for a kingdom to flourish. There needs to be morals and ethics and principles of justice and compassion and so on. We need dharma. And so Guru Arjan spoke of Hilmi Raj. कोई भैन किसी रजान दा ये हुआ हिलमी राज. When no one fears no one, and people live in a compassionate, intelligent kingdom. But in order to have that kind of kingdom, dharma bin raj dale, to have the raj, ko kisko, now is going to give you a kingdom like. Oh, you're going to get with Nijbal. So you're going to take it with Nijbal, which we did by driving the British and so on out. So with Nijbal now, we need to hold on to it as well. Like. So look at all the forces around the world who are trying to dismantle this nation and so on. And as India climbs up,
The forces will try even more.
they're going to try more and more. And the best way they can do this is by creating splits within your own ranks and so on. Because there's always people who can be bought and sold. And there's always people who are stupid, who don't understand the bigger game, what the enemies are trying to do. So this is happening. It's like the Khastanis in the Sikh world, like, and their numbers are very small, but they're very boisterous. They intimidate anybody else, but they are completely on the wrong path. Guru Gobind Singh at no point spoke about Punjab, he spoke about Madhya Pradesh. At no point Guru Gobind Singh spoke about he spoke about Sagal Hind in all his writings and so on. So, and his Panj Pyare came from all over India, so that means he had appeal for all of India. And this is the whole idea, like and then clearly he states in Sablu Granth, Sanatanta Meri Prabh Safal, like make my Sanatan Dharma successful. Like. So the endeavors of this Shastra Vidya is to make that Sanatan Dharma successful, and successful in the sense that Dharma is called, is above all else. So without your Dharma, like, you are nothing and so on. So if your morals and ethics and such are compromised, so there is the foundation of Dharma. So even Chaturya I teach is aggressive, and it can be, but it's not that kind of, it's efficient in terms of dealing with what it needs to deal with, but it is ultimately grantor of peace. Hinsa dharma dago, kima dharma rago. So it gives you peace and contentment of mind, body, spirit. So physically young men, even old people, like I said, because it's not depending on muscle. You could be 60 years old, like I'm 60 years old. You could be 60, 70. You could still train in this because it's not dependent on those muscles. I mean, here, Jatin, come here. I mean, this art is not athletic, but at the same time, it can outmaneuver, is quicker, is faster, is stronger than an athlete. Is he athletic? What's the art like?
No, that's not at all athletic, because whoever is an athlete, he realized that after after the age of 30 years, your performance declines heavily, and but this is the beauty of this art, Sanatana Shastra Vidya. As you grow old, it becomes a lot more, skilled. You become a lot more efficient. So this, as I said earlier, it's completely opposite. So as you grow old and you are still practicing Vidya, you'll becoming more efficient, more agile, more skilled, and more fast.
So even if you're like completely new to it, like say you haven't, I said, you never train in your life and whatever, you can start this and still progress in it, because, I mean, at what age can't you relax? Think about it. What age can't you relax? Because relaxing is the main thing here, like. And so once you learn to relax and so on, so you need a functioning body. That's the only thing we have to say. Your body needs to be functional and so on. And then if your body is functioning, and then we can get the adequate fitness and so on, and you can train and so on. And then this will revolutionize, change your whole mindset. Like living a life in fear, there's nothing worse than living a life in fear, like, and so on. How many children at school get bullied or whatever? How many people live in fear, or they don't want to go out, this, and so on. So to live a life which is nirpay, so the Guru says, like, nirpay hota gur ka singh kalhaiye. Only you become fearless can you be a Sikh, a disciple of the Guru. Like, okay, if there's fear inside you,
You cannot.
they cannot be like, and that's every tradition as well. I can't be a Bhakta Vishnu, I can't be a Bhakta Shiva, I can't be a Bhakta of anybody. I can't be a sannyasi, I can't be a baragi, I can't be this, I can't be that. If there is fear there. That's why the first, what's called reflections on Bhairo. Confront your fears, overcome them, and then you start training like. So the beginning, you will start in terms of like aptapala, my own welfare. Because people come to train, say, I want to learn how to defend myself, blah, blah. That's there, that's the beginning, that's it. Lower end. At the end, you're talking about sarbattapala, subhit. Yeah, for everybody's interest, like in the Bhagavad Gita it says and so on. So you want to train in that sense and so on. I mean, there's a beautiful, like, if I can, just, before we conclude, there's a beautiful quote that we're using from the Rig Veda. Okay, so the ancient masters in the Sanatan world, in the Sikh world, they go, there's this particular quote is in Rig Veda, is verse 10, 191.4. Okay, so that's where it is. And in this beautiful verse, it so sums up everything that we want. So when people nowadays say, look, there's no such thing as an Indian nation. The whole Khalistan said this. They say, oh, there's no such thing as Indian nation. Indian nation only came about when the British came about. But the self-identity of Indians as being a distinct Sanatan culture or a particular culture is old as the Rig Veda. And that means from the beginnings of time. They all understood. And in this beautiful verse, I'll give it in English here, like, you can easily look up the English verse, the Sanskrit, like I said. Look up the verse, which is 10.191.4, like, okay? And look it up. So all those people when people say like, oh, the Indian nation has never been a nation, blah blah blah. You normally I give them the quote, then I slap them in the head like, because that's what Kshatriyas can do as well like. So he says, this is the translation. He says, let your aims be common, and your hearts of one accord, and all of you be of one mind, so you may live well together. If that's not a call to nationhood, what is like? Think about it. And that's the Rig Veda. That's from the beginnings of time. You can't get more Sanatan than the Rig Veda. Like. So the app that we have is being created by a company called Buddhabari, the Ocean of Wisdom. And that is his motto like we're using, and so on. So Sanatan Chaturvidya, and is the way I envisage it here in this country in particular, is that its purpose is to bring that code to the Rig Veda into reality, like, and so on. So we Indians are a culture which is not a homogeneous culture. It is a pluralistic culture. The Indian culture has always been tolerant, so you can have the Khat Darshans with opposite views, but they can all relate to one thing, and that everything is one Brahm. And so everything is infinite, but the end is one. At the same time, so this kind of understanding, the Kshatriyas in the past kept the Indians together. The Kshatriyas did not only guard the borders, but they bound society together as well, like, and so on. So youth, our elderly, our communities, if they have the Kshatriya, if not even the Kshatriya skills, the Kshatriya bhavana, like, it will transmute India completely, like. No one calls, when I go outside, no one says to me that Indians are nerdy, only nerdy, like. I have Soul Singh to tell them otherwise. But the same thing is, and like I said, the Khalistanis and so on, this kind of knowledge, when you point this out to them, apart from, they can spew hate on the internet. Not to my face, because I have him again, like. There, they can do what they want. But this Rigvedic verse is what Guru Gobind Singh, it was the philosophy that, because in the Guru Gobind Singh, Guru Nanak said, all these philosophies were taught like. So even today, I could show you a Dasi Baba talking about this. And we speak of this, the whole time, bringing the whole nation together and binding them in that Sanatan understanding, and so on. And that's what Chaturya does. That's one of the missing links we have, like. So it is distinct from the yogis and sadhus. So I'll tell you how distinct, I'll tell you in this way. So the yogis and sadhus and sants, they have 5 virtues. Sat, Santokh, Daya, Dharma, Dhij. Sat is truth. Santokh is contentment. Daya is compassion, dharma is dharma, and then you have dhirj, equipoise. So these are the 5 virtues of a sant. The Kshatriya has the same virtues but reversed. So if you're a sant, for you, Sat will be the greatest thing. Telling the truth is the best. That's it. I'm a Kshatriya. I need to have Dhirj first. If an enemy appears and is about to attack, I need to have Dhirj, equipoise, able to hold my ground. If I was going to contemplate Sat and run away, that ain't going to help me. Like, then you're a Sant. You have Santok, contentment. No, I have my Kshatriya Dharma. I take my danda out. When I got Dhirj, then I take my weapons. That's my Kshatriya Dharma. Then you have Daya, then we both have Daya. Because even when the Kshatriya killed, they never killed. So Kshatriya principle is simple. Never engage with someone who's weaker than you. Okay? And they will weigh everything up before they strike or hurt or kill. Because they are not Rakesh. They have Taram, they are Dan Yud, they are Biras, they are Bir warriors. They do not want to offend their goddess. So their goddess, our goddess, Devi Chandima, she expects that you keep your sense of called dharma, your self-respect and dignity all the time. Like, don't compromise your self-respect and dignity and so on. Otherwise, your mother gets deeply offended. Like, so they have Daya. So Sat, Santok, Daya, and then they have Dharma. But that's what Sant has Dharma. After that, we have Santok after that, because we just go to the enemy that he's gone like now. Then last is Sat. So whereas a sadhu or a sant or a mahapurush, he will seek the truth and present the truth and live the truth and so on. The Kshatriya does the opposite. He looks for the lies. Because he's going to catch the chores, the thieves, the murderers and scum on the earth. So once he exposes the lies, the truth itself will emerge. So the mindset is slightly different of a Kshatriya, because he's Rajoguni and the Sant is Sattoguni. And for a true Kshatriya, his mindset, his intent, okay, his intent is Sattoguni. His mind and heart may be Rajoguni, dynamic and so on. And he has an element of tamas because he takes life if need be, like. And that's the last resort. It's not like he's not going to rush to it. So Chaturda is that missing link, that last piece of the jigsaw puzzle of the Sanatana world that is required in India. And like I said, after Guru Gobind Singh, when Guru Gobind Singh, in that period of time in history, when the whole Hindu world was under attack by Aurangzeb and they were trying to annihilate the Hindus, Guru Tegh Bahadur sacrificed his life there. And at that point, when Aurangzeb was telling him to convert in Surya Prakash, he replied simply, Dharma hamara Hindu ati priya. So my dharma is Hindu and is extremely loved by me. And later on, Pant Prakash tells you this, Hindu ko palan, Turk ko galan, peo khalsa isse karan. To nurture the Hindus, to destroy the Turks. The Turks were here talking about the Mughals who were oppressive. Because in that period of Sikh armies, they had Muslims in the armies as well. We're not talking about persecuting Muslims, so we're talking about these Turks who were persecuting Muslims. So as a consequence, the Sanatana Dharma that we have, the Kshatriyas, they had that. When the British came, the world was turned upside down for the Sanatana Sikh world. So now with the Khalstanis and the Sikh revisionists, anything linked with the Hinduism, so even things like they say our Ram is different to your Ram, nonsense. Whereas I'm bringing out whole books which are dealing with this as well. Like there's a book called Sikh Quotes of Wisdom, The Secret Naam. In there, all these controversies, all this are about the Ram this and Krishna this and this, I've dealt with them systematically in those texts. So because knowledge is, that's the Gyan Karg now coming, because I wield both. I have Low Karg and Gyan Karg. And then the books that's going to start coming out, the 3 volumes of Chaturda, they're coming out with the app on Kindle. There's one on it called Naam Jap and so on. He'll tackle with all the stuff in the Guru Granth Sahib, his framework of understanding and all this controversy against Ram, Krishna and whatever. And then there's one Ugadanti explaining whole Devi worship in the Sikh world. That's coming out as well. And then there's Pakyan Chitra, which is dealing with all the deceptive characters in the world and so on. Because a Kshatriya is not a Santa like. A A Kshatriya needs to think like a chor to catch a chor, needs to think like a murderer to catch a murderer, and so on. So the Kshatriya mindset should not confuse with a sadhu or a sant. He has different mindset. His intent is same as the sadhus. The intent of a sadhu or a sant is to uphold and promote and nurture dharma. The Kshatriya intent is exactly the same, except his mindset
Has to be different.
different, because a Kshatriya sits on the border, whereas a Sant is at the heart of society and leading by example and his wisdom. A Kshatriya is guarding the borders, and sometimes he may have to slightly like cross the border to deal with an enemy, look into the dark side and so on. But it's like, so whereas our Maryada, whereas our ideal is Ram, but our mindset is of Krishna Maharaj. So Krishna Maharaj is spoken of as Leela Purushottam, and whereas Sri Ramchandra ji is Maryada Purushottam. So Leela Purushottam in Punjabi we sum up like this. Sometimes to take the K out, you have to sort of bend the ungli and bring it out. So we have saying like, Bota mithavana hove, that they can eat you, and Bota kodavana hove, they spit you like. So same with lakdi, not too straight, not too bent. So we're that type of so on. So we have that bit of kotorta as well. Like. So whereas a sadhu will say, you should always speak the truth and speak it sweetly. And if the truth is bitter, you should not speak it. That's the sadhu way. In Shatrudya, we say, yes, you should speak the truth, whether it's sweet or bitter. Speak the truth. Doesn't matter. Sweetness is fine. If you can speak the truth sweetly, fantastic. But if the truth is bitter and it has to be said, and the bitter thing here in India is that the Kshatriya dharma has been neglected and so on. So once it's apnula, I mean, I can understand there'll be people here who get scared. I mean, people are scared to have a talwar around, a sword around. I mean, in India, you can't keep a sword with an edge, without an edge on it. The Nahangs keep swords. Why? Because we never surrendered to the British. Never surrendered it. And you have to kill every Nahang to get to the sword. Like, they will never surrender it, because the sword is the Devi. Like, and the Devi is only there when the edge is razor sharp and the point is razor sharp. Otherwise, there's no. So in the Americas, in Europe, and everywhere I go, my sword, this goes with me. Like, but the rest of the Indians gave their weapons up. As a consequence, even today, the laws prohibit them. In the ancient days, if you were a law-abiding dharmic citizen, you could have weapons. If you were a criminal, you couldn't have weapons. Now it's the opposite. So the Maryada here now is for us to bring this back. And there's some Indians may be apprehensive. Some people are thinking, hang on a minute, we've got to make it into a violent society. But the opposite truth, like once the Vidya is understood properly, with this, because it's pros and dharma and so on, this is the most peaceful there is. Because you're informed by pure Gyan, there's a Gyan Kharg, and then there's a low Kharg, like, and so on. And so this will make society much more healthier, stronger, and peaceful. So they say this, if the more the tigers are in the jungle, the healthier jungle is. Why? If the tigers are there, that means they have food there, like deer and wild boar. If the wild boar and deer are there, that means there's a lot of grass there. If there's a lot of grass there, there's rain and stuff. So the jungle's health is determined by how many tigers you have, predators in there. If you have more deer in there than tigers, that means it's healthy because they can eat everything. Same in our society. If you're in your society, in this, we have tigers, we have individuals with the same spirit as Rana Pratap, Rana Sangha, Shivaji Maratha ji, and Guru Gobind Singh, and so on. Individuals who are not going to look away when some girl's getting harassed, not look away when some child's getting hurt or some old granny's being attacked and so on. People who have self-respect, they have integrity, have dignity, and they also have the bahubal. Kal mein kal karpan ki paran pujan ko paro proso, says Guru Gobind Singh. In Kal Yuga, in the dark age, Kal Rup Karpan, the death form Karpan, the Karpan of Shiv, Kal Rup Karpan, and Bhariyan, powerful arms. Because in times of Guru Gobind Singh, again, the Hindus have been cowered down for 700 odd years, 650 odd years by the Muslims that time, the Turks, the Mughals. And as a consequence, they couldn't ride horses, they couldn't keep weapons, they couldn't keep their called turbans, beards, and so on. And as a consequence, Guru Gobind Singh then reversed all that. And the way he did that was through Shastra and Vidya. He gave them both. He gave them Gyan Khand and the Low Kharg. And that's why now Gyan Khand we have. and it's called so the dharma in that terms is flourishing. But you need men of integrity as well. Like in the meantime, sadhus and sants who do not have this low kharg. So think about Rishi Munis. All our Rishi Munis were Kshatriya.
Kshatriya.
All our great sants in the past were also Kshatriya, and so on. Even the sadhus, like even the Gorakhpanthis, Gorakhnath, and so on. When you don't have this steel in your veins, in your bone, then sadhus and sants can be intimidated. They can, out of fear, compromise their dharma, like. And let me end this today, like, with this beautiful quote from a European, like. And this quote here is in 1876, Reverend James Vaughan wrote of the heroic defense of India over the centuries by Hindus against Islamic invaders. Now, this narrative came about before the British decided to alter the curriculum, because the British altered the curriculum of studies in India. They got rid of the indigenous education systems by getting patronage, and then they devised a curriculum designed to make Indians feel inferior, that they've always been subjugated, this is their natural order of things, and so on. That was never the case. When the Greeks came, they got driven out. When the Sveta Huns came, they eventually got driven out. When the Turks and all that came, they got driven out. The British came, they got driven out. Each time. Now, in every other part of the world, if you look at it, they stayed and they wiped out those cultures, like. Okay, the Christians wiped them out, then the Muslims came, they got rid of the Zoroastrians, they got rid of the whatever Orthodox Christians, etc., and so on. In India, it remains. So this quote here is, so Reverend Vaughan, 1876, writes this, and you will never hear this in Indian schools to this day, like. So he writes, "It is impossible to review the history of the successive invasions of India by the followers of the Prophet, and the persistent opposition which they and their creed encountered before their rule was established, without admiring the heroism and self-sacrifice of the Hindus. Patriotic devotion and deeds of valor unsurpassed. Even in the annals of Greece and Rome again and again distinguished them, whilst the noble army of martyrs who preferred death to apostasy appears side by side with those who cheerfully shed their blood for their country's freedom." So look at that, he mentions country's freedom. So that means that the nationhood, the understanding of nationhood already existed. Okay, country's freedom. The wonderful ease and rapidity with which Mohammedanism spread itself over Syria, Persia, the north of Africa, and Spain, overturning dynasties and abolishing national faiths, stands out in striking contrast to the slow and painful process by which it gained a footing in India. In truth, he admits, in truth, as it has been well remarked, so that means others have already said this, the British are already saying this, they knew this, Hinduism presented it a mightier barrier to its progress than did the degenerate Christianity of other lands. So the Sanatana world was never weak, it was never pathetic. You got to understand that. And it has been resilient. So if you ever go to Mexico and so on, you see what happened to their indigenous cultures. Like, you go to the Americas and you look at the state of the indigenous Indians in America and Canada and see what happened to them. You go to Europe and you realize when Charlemagne put an axe on one hand and the Bible in the other hand and converted the pagans there, the Saxons and so on, would either accept or chopped head off. That happened in Europe. Like, if you go to Iran, like, there are still Zoroastrians there who live in hiding and in secret do their ceremonies and stuff, but they are vanquished there. They don't exist. Some of them escaped to India, so they're the Farsis now. And then you go to other parts of the world. So whereas India, we have a continuum of thousands of years of culture, like, and sometimes we have more. It's like the Tamils down south. Their culture is intact for centuries. They're doing the same things what the Greeks were doing all those 1,000 years ago. The Tamils are doing the same rituals now. In northern India, we got more impacted, But even here, it has survived.
Survived.
And look at like Sri Ramchandra Mandir now, the Mandir in Ayodhya, after all those centuries, it is now back up again. You're building it. And in the same way, this culture is, Sanatana Dharma is eternal. And it is eternal, it is resilient. And what I would say to you at the end now, this app is out. Okay, even in your wildest dreams, you never thought about being a warrior, a Kshatriya. So Kshatriya we mean is not by caste. Kshatriya is understanding from the called Rig Veda, your karma. So Guru Gobind Singh understanding of Kshatriya is simple. Or the Jats, he says anybody who studies Brahm Vidya knows your Brahm, he's a Brahmin. Anybody who opposes Dharma and defends and fights for Dharma, is willing to sacrifice himself, he's Kshatriya. Anybody who earns honestly, doesn't know the kirt, and shares with the community and nurtures the world materialistically through dhan, and anybody, he is a Vash. And anybody who would in a Nishkam way serves the world is a Shudra like. And you can be a Brahman, Kshatriya, Vash, Shudra in one. Who's a Chanda? All in one. You can study Brahm Gyan, you can wield the Gyan Kardik and the low Kardik, you can what's called earn money and give in charity and so on. You can serve your fellow mankind and so on, humbly and so on. And the Chandal, who's a Chandal? When you have people who are like murderers, scumbags and all these are the Chandals that we don't want to associate with. Those are Chandals. So by birth you're nothing. So Kshatriya Bhavana, so even if now today, as you as an Indian, you're thinking, hang on a minute, I never thought about being a Kshatriya. I never thought about this. You have wrong ideas of Kshatriyas. You're thinking watching Bollywood and Hollywood and watching all this sports stuff. This is how warriors. This is nothing to do with that. This Vidya is sublime as its parent culture, like. So it wouldn't be an upward otherwise. And anybody can train in this, and if not train, sport it. Download the app. There's a free content. Look at that. Buy a bundle or two. Just buying a bundle or two, which is like what, 300 rupees and so on. If enough people buy the bundle, this will financially help us out, because the ultimate aim is to establish a fully functional akhada back in India, where individuals can be taken in, given full financial security, so we can keep this alive. The ones who are wise, Dana Bina, as they say in Punjabi, wise, and they understand, and they have Dudrishti, like they can see far in the future. The benefits of preserving our culture, our cultural dances, cultural music, Shastra Vidya, our Vedantic knowledge, and so on, Shastras, etc., so on, is immeasurable. You lose this, then India will lose. India is not India anymore. Like, this is our identity, and this we're giving you an opportunity with this app. So wherever you are in India, on top of a mountain, sitting next to an ocean, wherever you are, and now the life is now very busy. So a lot of people can't. But everybody has a bit of time. The average person spends about 10, 12 hours on the phone. Take your time out, even half an hour a day. Look at this, and then slowly introduce this into your lifestyle, into lifestyle with children and so on. And this app is just the beginning. And there's books with it, there's other stuff with it, and later on, hopefully by this year and the next year, we're going to start putting in this year, so end of this year, a Sanyam Kriya app, which is a martial yoga, like it's a complement, it's a yoga system which is designed to produce fighting fit warriors, but also it slows down your aging process and ensures that you can live your life to the very end in a fully functional and so on. So that will come out. The books are coming out. All this is coming out. So the Kshatriyas, traditions, the philosophies, the lifestyle, which will enrich India in every way. Abroad, it'll be soft power India, just like the samurai and the kung fu and all this. And within India itself, it'll give that Kshatriya background. And the individuals be trained and made fighting fit to the point that if the Indian army ever needs soldiers, there's already warriors with beat bhavana and ability and capability and so on. Hope never comes to that, but at the end of the day, your society will be healthier, stronger in terms of physically, morally, emotionally, Look how many people suffer from depression now. How many people suffer from what's called backaches and knee aches and all this and so on. And spiritually, they're completely dysfunctional. This bit there is that Kshatriya word. So I will again say to the Indians, support it if you can by buying a couple of bundles and so on. And then let's bring this bit there fully back. What the English destroyed, tried to destroy, tried to annihilate. And then the Indians themselves got the misconception like it's called Hinsa is Bharmo Dharmo like, and so on. But it's not so. The following line, it's called Dharma Hinsa Tatya. So that has to be brought back as well. Like, yes, we are Hinsa, we don't want violence, but we should be capable of, if we face violence, to protect and defend ourselves, our families, our culture, our traditions, our community, society, our nation. Like, India needs to be strong. Otherwise, as that Rigvedic quote goes, let's get together now. So the app is here. Go for it. And let's bring back Kshatriya Dharma.
Definitely, Guruji.
There's a very famous saying, probably Hindi as well, Jaan hai to Jahan hai. If you have Jaan, the Jahan is yours. The whole world is yours if you have this. And again, this sense of pride and so on. I mean, they'll be out there. I mean, there come across people out there who will look at this. Oh, Sanatan Dharma. There are people out there, Indians themselves, people who are off the Hindu world, who are, themselves are hostile to Sanatan Dharma. I've met people who are lefties, who are extremely hostile to Sanatan Dharma. They have become students of mine, and once they're exposed to what actual Sanatan Dharma is, then that prejudice, that hate goes away as well. Like, Sanatan Dharma in its purest form is it's the most beautiful thing in the world there is. And we should not shy away from it. It's like Guru Gobind said, Sanatana Meri Prabh Safal. We should aim to make it successful and so on. And the Kshatriya Vidya is that extra, the element that is missing. Yeah, if you have a table 4 legs and 1 leg is missing, it's unstable. Like Dharma's 4 feet. At the moment, 1 leg is missing. So we can take this app. You could be living in Kerala, Tamil Nadu, you live in Assam, you can live in Punjab, you can live all over the country, wherever you are, all over the world. Like, and this app is a global app. And for Indians, we have deliberately cut the prices down to the point minimum as we can, because we want to share it here. Like the rest of the world, fine, we want to share with them, but at the same time is, I'll be honest with you, where I am India biased. So as a consequence, because this is the only place where the Vidya will be fully appreciated. The Europeans or the Americans or the Africans or this, they may understand our culture better and thus give you respect. I mean, but the full implementation, they're not going to set up the way we Indians are linked to
They won't
the
be able
part
to relate with it.
Yeah, they can't relate culturally, and they will not like worship the gods like we worship them and keep them in our hearts and so on. For that reason, India is the only place where this Vidya can regain back his full dignity and so on. And it'd be a very sad thing if Europeans and others are learning this Vidya, which they are, avidly learning the techniques and scars and so on, and our Indians are not like. So we need to do this, and if there are people out there listening and watching this who are linked with the government and so on as well, like the cultural aspect, whatever, listen to this, then also, step up and let's bring this Vidya back. Like any way you can help, let's bring it back. That's what I'm saying. That's what I need. We need help to bring it back. Otherwise, I'll carry on forever. Like, I'm not going to stop. And I've got a few more students here. But I want Sanatana Kshatriya, Pan-India, and so on. And it's out of all the glorious things in India, this is one of those glorious things. Unfortunately, this gem for the last 150 odd years has been hidden. Like,
Guruji, you have covered the entire topic very well. And I don't have any more questions with regards to this as of now. I'll request everyone to use this app, support this app, as it is something that we need. It reminds me of a line by a very famous poet in 1950s, Ramdhari Singh Dinkar ji. He says, Shama shobhati us bhujang ko jiske paas garal ho. So until unless we are strong, we cannot be kind. And this app, this knowledge, this teaching of Sanatan Shastra Vidya will help us becoming strong. Guruji, before we end this session, I have 2 questions. Those are my personal questions from your previous videos that I have watched. In one of the video, you were explaining how our warriors like Maharana Pratap, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, Rana Sanga, they didn't used to lift weapons. Rather, they used to balance it on the center of gravity, which allowed them
No. So let's have a look at this. So Shaturudaya works on gravity. So when we take a weapon up in our hand, we don't hold the weapon as such. We integrate the structure of the weapon into our body with a certain brace, and then we absorb the weapon's mass into our body, and so on. And then the weapon's mass becomes part of our body mass, and then we can relax through our structures and generate what we call that Chardika, the buoyant energy. So we have we have 9 types of energy altogether, and so on. And one of them is the buoyant energy we use, and so on. So once we have those energy, we have the Karshan energy, we have the buoyant energy, we have the frog energy, then we have the expansion that comes with the Gati Shakti. That's the few. So we have the energy we look at is like Shiv Shakti. So Shiva represents everything that's still, everything that's compressive. And so the compressive energy is like in terms of simple compression, and then it's frog, and then it's called buoyant energy, there's frog energy. Then the goddess represents Gati, kinetic energy. So she comes in forms of expansion, it comes with twisting and coiling and so on. And when we bring them together, Shiv Shakti, the 6th, 7th, they come together. Then they come in forms of Shankakara, which is a spiraling energy. And then when the spiraling energy comes eventually, then we generate what we call Orj. Okay? And then that Orj energy is that radiant fascia energy and so on. And then that makes the 8th. And then the 9th one is more of it's not a physical energy as such. It's a particular type of robe, your dabdaba, your very presence that these guys will tell you they feel before he actually comes, like before you do anything. Once you take those postures, then once you're emitting those energies, they can feel your intent and so on. So with these kind of energies we have, so the weapon, we're not wielding with the arm as such. So the Rishi Munis were so sophisticated, they understood Sapeh Gati, relative movement, long before in the Western world there. So when I move, the arms don't move. My arms and weapons move because my body moves. So I regain my position by moving my whole body. My body then moves at the most basic level by displacing body mass with shoulders. So everything's happening from the shoulder, which is then connecting to the whole body through relaxation. The art, like I said, is sublime. It is subtle. If you go onto the app, in small videos, I will start explaining to you. After a couple of months, you'll start understanding. There's articles in there you can also buy and so on that could tell you, explain, and you will begin to understand. But otherwise, to articulate this kind of understanding it's like explaining nuclear physics to you. Like, it's not way, but our Vidya, it is a sophisticated Vidya. These boys will tell you like how subtle it is. Yesterday we had guys shaking their head like this. It's beyond us. We can't get this. You get it. So, yes, the weapons can be wielded with a particular science without being wielded.
The another question, Guruji, that I wanted to ask is, it's from academic point of view. I heard you saying in one of your talks that there were 2 lines, like you quoted in this talk as well. Like, we use myths as a package, right? So there were 2 lines, 2 streams rather, Mitihasa, Itihasa. So I have tried to find out any academic reference or any book or anywhere that I can find more about it, but I have not been able to. So I just wanted to know if you can point me in some
So the
direction.
books I'm bringing out now, like, will have all this in there.
Okay.
So, like, volume 1, that's going to come in about 10 days' time, hopefully. We're just setting it up now. In there, volume 1, you'll trace the origins of the art from its prehistorical mythological times, going back to Shiva and going to the Vedas, the Varete, and so on. Then it'll go from the mythological and the prehistoric to the classical age, to the medieval age, then the times of Sikhs and so on. And so, but these references, don't forget, it's the same as Rag Vidya. If you try to look at the classical musical history, like trying to find reference to history, so on, because both of these arts, like Rag, Kathak, Bharatanatyam or Shatra, they could known as Kartavya Vidya. Kartavya Vidya, they're Karne Wale Vidya. You do them, they're passed down orally. And Shastra Vidya in particular is a secret science traditionally, because you had village level arts, like nowadays you have Gatka and all this and so on, which came with Turks later on. Then the other arts, so the village arts were basically done by peasants. And the peasants, on one hand, they couldn't dedicate their life to it. For a simple reason, they're going to plant crops and they're going to harvest crops, so they have to do around that, but they need somebody to defend themselves. So the village arts are usually arts which don't have like armor, chainmail, horses, so on. Then you had the Raja with their armies. Or sometimes they had like Natha Babas. And Natha Babas basically formed armies of the Rajputs and so on. And these warriors were like lifetime warriors. So obviously, if you totally dedicate to this, you're going to have much higher skills than the peasant who dabbles in it, as you say. So there's a distinction between royal arts and peasant arts. The peasant arts, on the whole, in British Raj period, they deteriorated into exhibition stuff. And so you have all this, covering your eyes up, cutting bananas and other stuff, cutting bananas and jumping up and down and all that. Whereas the Kshatriya arts proper, because the modes of warfare changed, and plus they were banned completely. So they almost vanished, apart from this one guy who kept it alive, Saran Singh Bangru. And through him, the Akada has come through now. And as they say, it only takes one spark to ignite the whole jungle. Like, so where this app is meant to be that spark that's going to do that. And so the Vidya itself, like I said, is on one hand, village arts, the classical arts. This is a classical art. And like all classical knowledge, it is a subtle knowledge, like, but you can like the concept of moving gravity may seem like, hang on a minute, what does that mean? If I said it's just like a baby, when the baby leans beyond the center of gravity, that's the first beginning. If you get that understanding in your head, okay, this is what it means, that we're going to take our body mass beyond our center of gravity. And then as you progress in the Vidya, they'll show you ever more ways, more subtly and sophisticated how to achieve this. Because ultimately, the way the baby moves like this is telegraphic. You can see it come. We want to do it non-telegraphic. So our ancestors looked at the way animals moved and so on. So every yuddhan that we have, the fighting form, Shastra, is equivalent to a raga. So in Raga Vidya, at the beginning, they will train your kantavina, your vocal cords. And then they will teach you within the bandish of a rag. In Shastra, we don't use the vocal cords as such, but we use the whole body. So we train your whole body first to get the right body physique and the body mechanics. And then we put you into a particular bandish of a yuddhan. A yuddhan is basically like a bar formation, but the buddhan is how you range your body and relax and adopt a particular internal structure to generate a particular type of energy. And then every yuddhan is like this. And you then, just like Raga Vidya is, that within the melodic framework, you can improvise as you want. Improvise. Same with Shastra Vidya. Once you learn the yuddhans, within the framework of the actual yuddhan, which is equivalent to a bar formation, you can improvise and so on. And your improvisation, because we're talking about combat, is going to be relevant to actual combat. Okay, you can't use improvisation just to dance or whatever, it's combat related. So the art is, like I said, in every way is Sanatan, cultural and so on. And get the app and you will be able to delve into a world that most Indians, I won't say most, nearly all Indians, never even dreamed that it existed. Like they would have heard stories, how Hanumanji went and Angada went to put his foot down, they couldn't lift it. They hear stories about such and such warriors and so on who could move. Even the Marathas. There's letters from the conflict between the Marathas and the Afghans when they had the battle of what's called Panipat and so on.
Panipat.
There's letters. It talks about a particular. So I don't know what his name, Shiva, something like that. Sadashiva, so on. Moving quicker than thought. And Guru Gobind Singh Rai says, "Mante tan chalyo tej jagmat ko." So quicker than the mind, the body of the goddess moved, Devi Ma. In there, it talks about Sadashiv moving quicker than the mind. And there's other examples of history, so on. So they have the same, but the same knowledge and so on. Even down south, like now they call Kalari martial art, but Kalari is not in the classical text. There's no Kalari. In the classical text, which is Sanskrit, is Shatru Vidya always. So a point came where, with British Raj coming in, Kalari itself was watered down, and then later on, early last century, the Kalari practice themselves made it more culturally appealing and so on. And I would say even to those Indian other martial artists who do folk art, if you take the body mechanics from this art and insert them into your village arts, it's like giving you a new blood transfusion. The body mechanics will make what you do, so they're gone on the way of entertaining and culture, they'll go back into combativeness and he'll realign with dharma. Because that's the whole point of Kshatriya, like to guard dharma, like I'm not here to entertain you. So the idea, pattebaj khel dikhawta hai, surbir kartav karta hai. Pattebaj, gatka players, they are there to call khel. They entertain. Surbir does kartav, he does great deeds like. So he's like Rama. So Kshatriyas are meant to lead as shining examples like Rama like. That's it. So Ravaniti, so like I said, Shaturya, if Shaturya gets corrupted, there's some people, let me show you, there's people out there who may not be able to appreciate Shaturya. In the past, people who couldn't appreciate Shaturya, they couldn't learn the subtle science. They went all muscular. And that's called Ravaniti. The ones who take the true, it's like you get two people who study the same text. They can study from the same Rigveda or Veda or whatever, Shastra. Two people study the same knowledge. One person studies in Nishkam Bhavana, without our desires, in total humility. He's Arpan, he surrenders himself to Brahm, to Parameshwar. The other person's learning, no Nishkam, he wants to get it. He's doing it with ego, with Hankar in his mind. So when the one with Nishkam Seva gets it, he stays humble. The one with Hankar who gets the same exact knowledge, oh Hankara in that. And he becomes egoistic, because I'm better than everybody else because I got this knowledge. But then, so the ones who are humble, they, so their whole body stays relaxed. That's Ram. The ones who get Hankar, anchored in there, that I'm better than you, like. And that Akarpura then leads to this. So the Vidya is, when we say Ram the Vidya, the Vidya is the same. Except one stays humble and relaxed, and hence works with Kal, with gravity, with Shiv, and can dance the Tandav at the end. And the other one learns the same Vidya, but then the Hankar comes in. And then that Hankar generates that tension in the body. And it deteriorates into Ravandi Vidya, like. That's it. So we have to make a choice. When everybody studies with me, I say you make a choice. You want to be on Ram's side or Ravan's side? You make a choice. So let's be on Ram's side and get the Vidya out to everybody now.